and I am a trustee with the North Mason Chamber of Commerce. I am the chair of the Government Affairs Committee. I want to thank you guys for coming tonight and showing up to be a part of this very important event. I'd like to give special thanks to our sponsors, to the North Mason Chamber, the Faith and Actions Hub for Senior Centers, the North Mason Community Voice, the Hood Canal Communications, and Mason Web TV. I want to thank you all for being involved tonight and participating. One of my favorite quotes by Plato: one of the penalties for refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. So being involved today is very important. I thank you very much. Is Patti here? She wanted to say a few quick things before we got going. There she goes. Patti Kleist.
Thank you, Chris. I can stand on my tiptoes and not mess with it. Welcome everybody to the Hub Center for Seniors. If you're one of the people who has helped us over the last 7 years raise money, go to fundraiser, help us build this, thank you very much. An event like this is so exciting to see so many people from our community here interested in what's going on locally, and it just thrills us to be able to host you guys for something like this. And while you're in here, if you haven't been here before, we have calendars of our events in the back and different things we have going on here. This is a center for seniors, but you do not have to be a senior to come here. Seniors just get a discounted rate on everything over what it would be generally. So please check out what we've got going on. Where else in town can you have music, dancing, and a $3 or $6 lunch if you're under 60 for under $6? Monday, Thursday, and Friday, you can come here, you can line dance, you can rock out on Thursdays to rock and roll music, and have a great time. So even if you're in business in here in town, $3 lunch, guys. Where else? Anyhow, thank you so much for coming, and I'm looking forward to hearing what all these guys have to say, and I'm sure you are too. Thanks.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our moderator for tonight, Joel Myer.
This is a great place to be, and what a crowd. This is great to see that people are interested in what's going on in their communities. I'd like to thank you for being here tonight, the North Mason Chamber, and also this great facility that we're in now. I'd also like to note that Diedrich Allen here, who is running the space station situation there, will be replaying this so that when you get home at your leisure, you can watch this debate on hcc.net or masonwebtv.com. So pretty cool stuff. A couple of ground rules I'd like to lay out. First of all, thank you, Chris, for telling people to turn the ringer off on their phones. That's good. Because the person, hold up that chair, would you mind? First person that happens to, that's where you're sitting. So one of the things that will help us out to go smoothly tonight is refraining from applaud after a candidate's question is answered, between or during. And when I say during, probably the most important thing is that we have a really tight timeline for these candidates to be able to speak. And if we take those comments up with 10, 15 seconds of applause, your candidate may be the one that loses time to answer the question fully. So a little bit decorum there would help us out. Cell phones and applause. So thank you very much. And one final thing I'd like to do before we bring our candidate, before I explain how we're going to do this, and I bring our candidates up, I would like us to give our candidates the applause because they're so willing to participate. I was a county commissioner for 2.5 months, and that was 2.5 months too long. So I know how tough it is just in that 2-month period. It is for some people to run and be a person in public office. And so my hat's off to you guys for being able to do that. Okay, so as we go along here, we're going to be having our 8 candidates. We'll start with our legislative candidates for position 1 and 2. And then we'll have a little break to get a presentation from the folks that are wanting to talk about the Metropolitan Park District. And then we'll have our Mason County Commissioner candidates, Districts 1 and 2. And here's how it's going to go. We'll have 3 questions for each race, and everyone here got at least one of those in advance. So they're well prepared for the first question they're going to have. So we'll ask the questions. Question will be asked to one candidate, and I checked really early on. Yes, I've got a quarter. So, coin flip to decide who goes first. Candidate A will have 2 minutes to respond to the question. Candidate B will have 2 minutes to rebut. Candidate A will have 1 minute to counter. And candidate B will have 1 minute to finalize. So at the end of all the questions, the candidates will have 90 seconds for a closing statement. But then we get to go to the lightning round. This is the exciting one at the end, where we will allow you to ask questions from the audience. We'll have a line to ask questions of the commission candidates. It depends on how we decide you're going to do this. Maybe this is one, maybe that's the one. And a line to ask of the state representative candidates. And so that ought to be pretty fun. It'll be 90 seconds per question. And everybody will be up here to field your questions that you ask. So it'll be a lot of fun. So to start things off, let's bring Dan Griffey and Irene Bowling to the spot. We have their named plates here. Okay, so heads Irene, tails Dan. Diedrich, what do you want to call? Sit down. It is tails. Okay, so, and the microphones are on. Everybody's ready to go. And this is the most fun question you'll have all night. And the timer, forgot about that. See the 30 seconds from here? Time's up. I will not be like Lester Holt. I'll whop you on the head.
Oh.
No, I'll be more kind than that. I'll pat you on the head. Okay, so here's the first question. The McCleary decision appears to be an overarching issue for the 2017 session of the Washington State Legislative Session. What should the legislature do as a response to the state Supreme Court's decision? In addition, what are some actions that can be taken to improve the state's education system, and would you support those actions?
I'm first?
You're first.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us. Thanks to the Chamber for holding this function. I think that the solution to McCleary is going to be probably a three-part solution. Number one, we have regulatory burdens that the legislature over lots of years, 30, 40 years, have put on education. It actually costs our school districts a lot of money to comply with. I think we're going to have a major regulatory reform bill that we see that will remove some of those burdens. The legislature will then have the ability to credit that against the debt that they owe in McCleary. Number two that I think that is really worth looking at is the local levy shift. There's a lot of work to be done on local levy shift, but McCleary, the overreaching part of McCleary is the Supreme Court has said that we have spent way too much. We spend way too much money of the local levy dollars to fund basic education. So the way we get around that is to have the state collect those dollars and remit them back, and then number three, to get to the number that the Supreme Court would like us to get to, is we're going to have to raise the per pupil reimbursement rate to somewhere in the neighborhood of $13,000, $14,000, somewhere in there. I talk about this in a kind of a fluid stance because we have a work group, a McCleary work group that's working on that, and all of my superintendents have asked for appointments with me to talk about the things that they see that they need. So before I come up with my final solution, what I think is that we're actually going to vote on, I want to hear from all of them. But thank you for the question.
Thank you, Dan. Would you like me to repeat the question, Irene?
No, I know what it is.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to speak quickly because I have a lot of ideas that I'd like to address this question with. The big issue is finding funding for meeting the McCleary Court order. We're being fined $100,000 a day because we're not doing this. I want to state also that I'm against an income tax and B&O tax, capital gains tax. I think we can do this without raising taxes. We need to address tax loopholes and exemptions on big corporations. There are over 600 of them, and that we need to act on this now. We have a bipartisan committee that is working on this, and of course we will be listening carefully to that. We also need to prioritize programs that prevent expenditures, like youth development and juvenile justice and mental health, because the more problems that we have in our society, the more costly it is. We have to invest in building the economy, small business. I'm a small business person. This is crucial to developing more revenue. We have to make sure that the state's bonds are paying the lowest interest rate possible. State treasurer should refinance state's debt when bond rates are low, like right now. We need to reduce the amount of money the State Investment Board spends on consultants. They spend $350 million per year. There's a lot of waste going on. We have to look at the state budget line by line. I also think the levy swap is a good idea for our district. In 1977, 10% of the economy for our schools was paid for by levies. Now it's 28%. So we need to definitely work on bringing money into our rural schools. The levy system, we're over-reliant on that. We need flexibility in our educational options, like Running Start, which is a terrific program, homeschooling, like the Pearl program. And we need to have our kids here have the same education in Belfair and the same opportunities as the kids in Bellevue, which as it stands right now, they're not having. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So the next question you get to start. What is the most, excuse me, oh, that's right, yes, we're going to the 2-minute, 1-minute counter, yes. Thank you for reminding me about that.
So, as I said, the McCleary work group is working on the subject of how we're going to comply with McCleary. I'm still getting scheduling appointments from all of our superintendents about the things that they would like to see built into a McCleary fix. So the final solution is still fluid, but what I gave you is some ideas. The one thing I do not want to do is, some people talk about loopholes that we have in Washington State. One loophole they talk about, and my opponent has talked about several times, is capital gains tax. Well, capital gains is income. And a lot of people say that capital gains tax is not an income, but when you invest money, you gain an income. That is your income. And a lot of people use that for their retirements. A lot of people are not as lucky as I am to have a pension to use for their retirement. So I don't think a good solution would be taxing someone's income on their capital gains. Thank you.
Thank you. And after that flub, we'll go back to you for the final rebuttal.
Right. Well, we have over 600, and that's always under negotiation of what was the best. But the fact is that this has been presented in the legislature, these over 600 tax exemptions and loopholes at big corporations. I'm talking about not the middle class or the working class, I'm talking about the big companies that are not having their feet held to the fire on this. And the Republican Party caucus has voted this down every time because they're protecting big business. And we have to make a decision. What is more important, our kids or protecting big corporations? I, for one, am very clear on what I'm going to go for, and that's the kids in our communities all across the state. So we have over 600 ideas, but if that's not even brought up to the public, if the public's not aware of that, and if we don't have legislators that are going to promote this program, then...
Thank you, Irene. Okay, now back to your regularly scheduled questioning process. So the second question, and we'll start with you, Irene.
Yes.
What is the most important issue facing Washington State over the next 2 years?
The most important issue is this McCleary problem, because if we don't find a solution for that, not only are we in contempt of in the courts, but we are also going to be gutting a lot of the social programs, safety programs, correctional programs in our state. This is a very, very serious problem. We have to find a solution for the McCleary's problem, and that's why I'm running. I'm an educator. I've been a teacher for about 40 years, and I've had students from all different walks of life, and I understand what these issues are. And I also, my passion is for our kids and our communities. So that's number one. But we have to do this without gutting all of the other important programs that our state supports. And this is going to be a real challenge, and we need legislators that think outside the box and that have the courage to say what the real problem is. And it's going to affect elder care, long-term care. It's going to affect all the social programs that we have in the state. I don't think that we should ever touch our fire departments, our police departments. We need protection in our communities, but everything is at risk. Also environmental protection issues, just about everything that you can think of is going to be at risk if we don't solve McCleary. Thank you.
Okay. Would you like me to repeat the question, Dan?
I have it. I think I have two issues. I can't limit it to just one. But number one has to be jobs in the economy. The way that we're going to be able to fund our public schools aggressively and amply is to make sure that all Washingtonians have a job. 35th district sits at a very low unemployment, a very high unemployment rate. And functionally, we're unemployed at very nearly 23%. A lot of that is because we still are reeling from the loss of the timber industry. We must invest in jobs in the economy so people can have those good jobs. And then number two, it's going to be on our list. It's going to be on our list until we get it done, and I think we are going to get it done this year, is complying with the McCleary decision. Thank you.
Okay. And you have a minute?
Yes, well, speaking of jobs, I absolutely agree with Representative Griffey that that is very important, especially for Mason County. However, things like raising the minimum wage or paid sick leave or community bargaining, these kinds of things also will help everybody in this area. And we need to have better paying jobs. We need better roads. I just took an hour to get from Silverdale down here. I could not believe it. How can we develop, how can we get people to come into this area and develop industries when we don't even have proper roads here? It's unbelievable. So jobs come when we have the infrastructure, when we have good education. We should expand Olympic College here in this area. When we have good roads, when we can preserve the beauty and everything that we love about this area, when we can lower our permitting costs for development. I can't believe how much it costs to develop your property around here. It's pretty shocking to me, actually, and also in Kitsap County. So there are lots, time's up. There are lots of things that we need to do, obviously.
Well, thank you. And Dan, you get to wrap this up.
So I think that a fair day's wage for a fair day's work is very necessary, absolutely. Washington State right now has the highest unemployment rate between 16 and 24-year-olds in the United States, highest. We worked very hard in the legislature when they were talking about changing the minimum wage to come up with a training wage. So how would businesses encourage businesses to invest in those new to the workforce? It was rejected wholesalely. The idea that maybe we could that businesses could hire somebody and give them some working skills, some good life skills, which they're not getting any longer. So we really have to be careful when we talk about that, because if we continue to make it more burdensome on the employers, that unemployment rate is only going to get higher. Thank you.
Okay, so now we go to question number 3, and we'll start with you, Dan. The question is, there are vulnerable groups of people in our community, such as senior citizens and children. Are there solutions to more easily allow state agencies, local governments, and private agencies to better serve these populations with needed support?
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked on a bill that would address elder isolation abuse. There's a lot of people that really don't understand it, but in my current profession, I see elder isolation abuse quite often. What happens is somebody who is the benefactor or has the power of attorney over somebody that's aging, they will isolate the elderly and basically spend all their money and steal all their stuff. And all too often, they are paid employees of Washington State. So I sponsored a bill, and Carrie Kasem, Casey Kasem, radio personality's daughter, met with me, and we worked on a bill. Did not get out of committee, but I'm gonna bring that bill again. When it comes to children's issues, absolutely, we can really make Department of Social and Health Services a lot more flexible They do have a top-heavy management staff ratio. We need way more care workers on the ground and less management. And I think that we're working through that, and I think we're going to get to that place. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, would you please?
Very good. There are vulnerable groups of people in our community, such as senior citizens and children. Are there solutions to more easily allow state agencies, local governments, and private agencies to better serve these populations with needed support?
Thank you. Yes, I think in many cases we're failing our citizens here. And I might add that many of the bills, if you look on the website for bills and how people voted, my opponent voted against many things that would have benefited our area here. He voted against mental health, foster children care, early learning programs, higher education for low income, many different things that I think you need to be aware of. We have a heroin epidemic here in the county, and it's also spreading into Kitsap County. That needs to be addressed. I think that we need to have a czar type of a person who is in charge of the homelessness problem here. Utah has over 97% of their homeless problem fixed. We need to look at states and programs that have solutions and ideas in regards to that. We also have about 40% of people in the prisons have some kind of severe mental health problem. In 1980, it was like 8%. So obviously, we're using the prisons almost as a psychiatric ward. We need more beds for the state hospitals. We cannot have people that have mental illness living on the streets. It's a danger to our community. And we have a growing drug problem in our community that has to be addressed, that has to be squashed. As for seniors, by 2030, we're going to probably need $6.3 billion in long-term care. Most people on retirement do not have the money to take care of long-term care. And this is going to be the next big issue. After we resolve McCleary, hopefully, God help us that we get that done, the next thing I think is going to be finding money and help and encouraging retirement plans so that people can save money for long-term care when they're elderly. This is a really big issue, I think, looming on the horizon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dan, you have 60 seconds to respond.
The opioid problem that we have, the heroin epidemic that we have, is all too familiar to me. I see it in my professional job as a firefighter. But what did I do about it? I co-sponsored a bill with Democrat Brady Walkinshaw. We presented that bill together. And what that bill did would allow law officers and social workers and those that work in our shelters to carry the drug Narcan in an auto injector setup, so we can actually save lives. When it comes to those that are vulnerable in housing, I'm working with trying to get a program off the ground in the city of Shelton. I've also worked with our county commissioners about how are we going to get tiny houses built here. We can build a tiny house for nearly $40,000 if we put it on a foundation. It's deedable, it's willable, you can get a mortgage on it, and I've been assured by all the banks in the area that they will loan on that. And I also have private investors that are willing to work on the first project in Shelton. We just need to change some zoning in Shelton. The commissioners are ready to go, and so we're going to get that done. Thank you.
And Irene, you'll have the last word on this.
Yes, Representative Griffey voted on House Bill 2730. He voted against that, and that was a very important bill that had to do with prescription drug monitoring. In other words, so that we know, and the doctors within the state would know who is on opioid, and a lot of that leads to heroin addiction down the line. And that was a vote against it. So again, I think we have to have some very strict overseeing and the pharmaceuticals. And of course, the pharmaceuticals don't want to have anything reining them in because they make a lot of money selling drugs, legal drugs. So we need representatives that are going to vote to really keep the pharmaceuticals at bay and protect our citizens so that we don't develop a further problem with heroin addiction here in our area.
Thank you. So we're through with our questions, and alternating first question, second question, third question. That would fall to you, Irene, to make the 90-second final statement.
Thank you. Well, I'm very delighted to be here. I remember being here a couple of years ago when it was just a big dirt lot. So it's really amazing what a community can do when it works together. I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, I'm a small business person. My family, my uncles were loggers here in this county, and my parents worked PSNS. So I understand the issues here in the 35th LD. I've lived here forever. I've gone out away to school, came back, raised a family here. I've got 3 college-age kids. I know how hard it is to try to raise a family, keep them in a safe harbor, and also make sure that they have the job skills. This is why I'm running, because I care about my students. I have 95-year-old parents. My dad's a World War II vet, so I help take care of them. So I'm kind of part of that sandwich generation. But the reason I'm running is because I care about making some difference in the state legislature to protect the elderly, protect the more vulnerable here in our communities, to make strict laws that will promote health and wellness for our communities. And I don't feel that that is being done. And that's why I'm putting, at my age, I'm 59 years old, I'm no spring chicken, but I'm willing to do this for all of you and for my 3 kids, for my elderly parents, and for the thousands of students that I've taught in the last 40 years. So thank you very much for your time and for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And Dan, you have the last word.
Well, thank you again to all of you for showing up tonight. Educated electorate is very important. Thank you so much to the Chamber for holding this forum. I think it's important to understand that the bills that Irene talked about, especially the bill she just talked about, would put you on a government list without an ability to get off that government list. And I think in a free society it is very important that we are very strict about how much government is allowed to collect information on private citizens. It was a bad bill, and you elected me to vote out bad bills, and I did. It was not fully cooked. I'm a professional firefighter. I've been in this community my entire life. I've been almost 46 years here. As a firefighter, I've learned problem-solving skills. And what I like about Olympia is I have hours and days and years to fix the problems instead of having a problem that I have to fix in 15 minutes to 3 hours as a firefighter. I am absolutely delighted and happy to serve in that capacity in Olympia. We have had over 2,000 people call the office and ask for help getting through red tape in Olympia. And I'll give you one example of one that we were able to get done. Somebody that has Parkinson's or MS, multiple sclerosis, couldn't get to their bedroom any longer. They put a wheelchair lift in their house, and it took the Department of Labor and Industries over 60 days to schedule to do an inspection on that installation. So 60 days she could not go to her bedroom. I called, and within a couple hours, they were out there and they did the inspection. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. And I think it is appropriate to thank these folks for their time up here. Why not? Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Okay, so as we change the stage and bring Drew and Craig up, Drew's here.
I just don't get any.
This may draw attention to you here.
Oh.
Lee's tracking it down over there. Let's see if I can make this work this time. Let's see. Hey, Chris, do you think maybe you can click this better than me? Sure. I'm sure you. Yeah. I have all confidence in you. Okay, so heads, tails. I have an affinity for you there.
Oh, good haircut.
Tails.
Okay, so we'll start with you when we get your.
I saw it there. It was in the back.
There it is. I see it from here.
That's
is
it.
That it?
Yeah. That's it. Yep.
There we go. Awesome. Okay. So, we will start here with Craig. And the first question, second verse, same as the first. The McCleary decision appears to be an overarching issue for the 2017 session of the Washington State Legislative Session. So what should the legislature do as a response to the state Supreme Court's decision? In addition, what are some actions that can be taken to improve the state's education system, and would you support those actions?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for everyone for being here tonight. This is a great turnout. Obviously, we need to fully fund the mandates under the McCleary decision. I think we all agree to that. I believe some things that we can do to improve our system, and I have this a little bit from firsthand experience being on the North Mason School Board for about a year and a half, is allow our school boards to have more autonomy over how we educate our kids. I think some of the bogging down in Olympia is becoming an issue of micromanagement, trying to dictate every last little issue to our school districts instead of allowing the elected school board directors that we as citizens elect to follow a general framework that, you know, this is our education system, and deliver it. And it's community specific. What programs and curriculum we may decide to use out here in the North Mason district may not work for the Shelton School District. It may be just preference. I don't believe there's one that's better or worse, but it comes to an issue where I really believe we have to have that local control back. And just in that short time on the school board, I felt that there was a lot of control plays being made, and the legislature was trying to mandate a whole lot of issues that really belong at the local level.
Okay, thank you. Drew.
Thank you, Joel, and thank you for everybody for being here tonight. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. McCleary will continue to be the forefront of all things in the legislature for the next couple of years. One of the inherent problems that we have is we've never really effectively defined what K-12 education is, and that's one of the reasons we have this headbutt with the court and the legislature, and that's not a Republican and a Democrat thing. It's two different bodies of government that are having this dispute, and I think one branch has an idea what they think it is, the other branch has another idea, and until we definitively define K-12 education, how can we possibly say that it's fully funded? So the first thing we need to do, and I'm working on a reform bill right now that'll do precisely that, and working with educators, both teachers, administrators, and parents, is to what is needed to have the opportunity to get a high school diploma in the state of Washington. And then we go back from there and go down into the lower grades. How many teachers should we have per number of students? And until we answer some of those very basic questions, how can we possibly determine what full funding is? And in fact, in the McCleary hearing 2 weeks ago, Supreme Court Justice Owens, I believe it was, said that the legislature could get out of this real easy by just saying K-12 is this and make it a very minuscule amount, and voila, K-12 is fully funded. Well, that's not the solution I'm certainly looking for, but it illustrates the point in that we have to have that definition. So the reform I'm working on will define K-12 education. We can then in turn come up with the funding. And I also believe then we should fund education first. We do it by March 30th of each year. We stop protracting that out and keeping our districts on the limb while they wait for us and have to make staffing decisions. We deliver that budget to the governor by March 30th. It becomes a one-line item in the budget, and we move forward from there. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
I think we've done a pretty good job of defining basic education. House Bill 1209 from 1993. I'm just going to read it real quick. Read with comprehension, write effectively, and communicate successfully in a variety of ways, settings, and with a variety of audiences. Know and apply the core concepts and principles of mathematics, social, physical, and life sciences, civics, and history, including different cultures and participation in representative government, geography, arts, and health and fitness. Think analytically, logically, and creatively to integrate technology literacy and fluency, as well as different experiences and knowledge to form reasoned judgments and solve problems. And last, understand the importance of work and finance and how performance, effort, and decisions directly affect future career and educational opportunities. Do we need to get more specific than that? Allow our school districts to design curriculum or implement curriculum that meets within those 4 parameters. This is what I'm talking about when we think about micromanagement. Anything more than that is micromanagement. Are we going to have Olympia dictating, you will only do this curriculum, you will only provide this sort of service when it comes to, sorry, thank you.
Thank you. And yes, Drew, thank you.
Thank you. That's exactly why I voted against many of the testing that we have and many other requirements we have. I worked with Representative Chris Reichta, who's now running for OSPI. Sits on the opposite side of the aisle from me. One of my very good friends in the legislature, it's about forming those friendships and those partnerships and working to get things done. And we've worked to remove the biology end of course test, and as well as numerous other tests that we've gotten. When you look at the last 25 years, yeah, the bill was passed in 1993. Look at the subsequent legislation that has come, and it has muddied those waters, and it's not clearly defined. And so that is the issue that we face right now. And again, I'm working on this reform bill and look forward to having that introduced here in the following month.
Great, thank you. I'm going to turn the second question, change it just slightly. And it's not an amazingly big change here, and we'll start with you, Drew, on this. Other than the McCleary decision, what do you think is the most important issue facing Washington State over the next 2 years?
Yeah, the economy and one Washington, everybody participating in the recovery and the economic growth, and not just one county in this state. You look at the rural area, the Olympic Peninsula, Mason County, and our level of participation in that economic recovery over the last few years has lagged dramatically. And why is it? I'd say it has a lot to do with the regulatory environment that is handed down from entities outside of our county. And we need to change that structure. The Growth Management Act is a classic example. If you have a light manufacturing company come in right now and wants to go into the Port of Allen, good luck getting more than 5 acres. Same thing in the Port of Shelton. We've put these constrictions on so many places, and the regulatory environment. I was happy to have bipartisan legislation signed by the governor last year that did some reforms in labor and industries. It's a first small step, and it's a big book, but I'll tell you what, the biggest and best ideas come from you, from the constituents, and from those of you that are in business or working for a company, and you see things that just don't make sense. Bring that up to us, because we can make those changes and we can make that occur. I've also worked on bipartisan reform of the B&O tax system. 85 years in the making by both parties that has continuously added and taken away, and it is so complicated now that it's tough to do that reform. And this has been 2 years I've been working on it. We're going to continue to work on that. We're going to flatten the rates, broaden the base, and the economic impact to businesses and to the economy in this state will be tremendous, and I look forward to continuing that work.
Thank you. Great.
Oh, I think probably the next biggest issue for many people, and it falls under kind of my scope of public safety, and that's mental health. It happens to be another issue that we're in contempt of court under. And many folks may not understand how mental health affects our communities or how you can necessarily make it a public safety issue. But the fact is that the safety net that is out there for these folks is often the 911 system. It is the fire department, EMS, and police who are dealing with these folks who are in crisis, and they have nowhere else to turn. And so the basic two places we have to send them a lot of times are either the hospital, and we understand where our health care is at right now, or jail. Neither place is the appropriate avenue to send these folks. They're in crisis and they need help. I know there's been some work out there about getting some triage centers, and that's great, but we need to have mental health professionals on the ground in our communities able to respond timely. There are many people, and myself, I'm a firefighter as well, we have numerous times where we go out and it's an individual who's been basically left to fend for themselves. They live by themselves in an apartment in not always the best neighborhood. And when they're having crisis, being taken advantage of, these are the people who've been marginalized and fall through the cracks. And so I think as Washingtonians, as humans, it's our duty to really try to provide the appropriate level of service and not just keep them in this circle of go home, have an issue, go to the ER, come home, have an issue, go to jail. We have to stop that cycle.
Thank you. Okay, Drew, you have a minute follow-up.
Yeah, I'll touch on the mental health as well. And there's, and the opioid epidemic is certainly huge, and working on right now seeking federal grants, and wherever those grants might fall short, passing legislation that would fund it for the remainder of our counties. And what it would do is and I cannot speak the drug talk on this, but people that have the addiction commit a crime because of that addiction, they go to jail, come out, and they're right back to their same routine. There's a drug that you can take that basically blocks the body. It causes the body to block the desire to take those opioids. And we can so what we're working on is having a person that would actually pick the individual up from jail when they've completed their sentence, take them to get this treatment. It's something that they agree to prior to sentencing, and so that we can put a stop to that cycle. And that's one of the things I'm working on in this area.
Okay, thank you. And Craig, you get to finish up.
Yeah, I would say from our perspective and I think if you're talking about methadone, I don't know if that's specifically what you're talking about, that has been a pretty common treatment for opioid addiction. But from the experience where we set from and our studies that we've found is that we're trading one thing for another. We're not actually fixing the problem. We deal with patients all the time that have now have a methadone addiction. Is it the lesser of two evils? I don't know. It's still two evils. So I believe that we really need to find really good treatment options. And unfortunately, in with our medical the way it is, it's not a very profitable line item. You know, it's not cardiovascular surgery or neurosurgery. It's not one of those really out there interesting topics. This is one that people usually try to ignore. So it is a big issue, and I'm not in favor of trading one addiction for another.
Okay. And final question, and we'll start with you, Craig. There are vulnerable groups of people in our community, such as senior citizens and children. Are there solutions to more easily allow state agencies, local governments, and private agencies to better serve these populations with needed support?
Yeah, I think we're sitting in a perfect example of that, especially for our senior citizens in this hub building, which is beautiful. And it'd be it's great to have basically a one-stop shop for our seniors to come, socialize, have access to services. And I think that's the biggest issue with senior citizens is just, like Representative Griffey spoke with, it's isolation, feeling like there's no community out there for them. And this is a great way of doing that. For our homeless and for the most vulnerable, I think it's speeding up process. Right now we have a couple of patients that we deal with that need further care. But it's working through the systems that we have. When you work within the system and realize all the steps that we need to take to get these people where they need to go, it is so frustrating on our end because we know tomorrow we're going to be right back to the same problem because it's just a continual cycle. So we need to, as agencies and as faith-based providers, we need to all take a step back and put this is our job to handle this aside and work together to really find some really good solutions and speed up the process instead of letting these people just kind of toil there until it's too late.
Okay, thank you. Drew, would you like me to repeat the question?
I'm good, thanks. I'll touch on the homeless issue. And in my first term, I served on the capital budget, and you see the amount of money that we put into various programs. And I think one of the inherent problems we have is we never stop to ask, has this been working? Is it effective? And when you've been doing something for 30 years and the problem's getting worse, it's not working. And I'm going to have a bill that'll be introduced for the 2017 session that is going to increase by law, we're going to codify it, the percentage out of the capital budget that has to go to home ownership programs like Habitat for Humanity. Is that going to work for everybody? No, I recognize that there are situations that, there's temporary low-income housing that we need to have, and there's other situations that have to be addressed with that. But increasing the amount of home ownership in our state would go a long way, and codifying that in the law, we've gone away. It was for a time that it was at I believe 12 or 15%. I think in the last capital budget it was less than 5%. And by increasing home ownership, people take value, they take ownership in their community, and to do that, I think it helps give our citizens a leg up. And there are multiple programs that we can be investing in more on that, and I think that's a good start on addressing the homeless issue. And again, it goes back to the economy and getting out of the way of businesses and letting them grow so they can hire people. Doesn't that solve it? If you got a job and you got income coming in, and again, I recognize that there are people that have issues that no fault of their own. And it is our moral obligation to help them. And that's not who I'm referring to when I talk about some of these other things. There is a moral obligation to help those that cannot help themselves, and we will continue to do that. But on some of these other programs, we need to increase home ownership, and we need to get out of the way to allow our economy to expand and hire more people.
Okay, Craig, you have a minute follow-up?
Yeah, I think it makes that big circle back to education and the work that our schools are having to do to a lot of these kids who, if North Mason, for example, provides breakfast and lunch free of charge, they did last year, they do this year. And oftentimes, those may be the only 2 stable meals some of our kids have. We can't teach hungry children. That might, the interaction with a teacher might be the only love they get for a day. So by heavily investing in our schools and getting to where we need to be, we can start breaking this cycle, I believe. An investment of $1 in education pays dividends on the end result of incarceration, unemployment, homelessness, without a doubt.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
And I was touching that. I was happy to vote for breakfast after the bell, and helped Representative Kelley from the other side of the aisle and the other side of the state navigate that bill through the House and get it passed. And there are programs that definitely make a lot of sense to do, and happy to where those make sense to be a part of that solution.
Okay, great. And now the alternating names and questions brings us to you, Drew, for the first 90-second response.
So this is our close?
Close.
Okay,
yes.
all right.
Yes, thank you. See, he's keeping me on track. This is awesome.
Here to help. Thank you. I appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you to the Senior Center and to the North Mason Chamber for putting this on tonight. I'm happy to be a member of the North Mason Chamber. As a business owner, it gives me a unique perspective in going to Olympia. And the laws that are passed during session, I have to live with as a business owner. And as a partner in other businesses and in the restaurant industry and in the in other service industries, you see the effect almost immediately of what happens in Olympia, both pro and con. And that gives me a unique perspective when it comes to representing you and doing the work down there. When we talk about making changes that they sound great and they feel good and it's going to make everything great. Well, when you're talking to a business that maybe has a 2.5% profit margin and you increase through a regulation or a new law, and you increase their cost of business by 30%, guess what? Something's going to happen, and it's not a positive. And it's having that perspective, and signing the front of a paycheck for close to 36 people every 2 weeks, and doing that before you sign your own. It's understanding what's going on and making sure that what we're doing in Olympia, we're getting out of the way and allowing businesses to grow, and yet we're maintaining the environment. We've increased production manufacturing in this state since 1990 by 260%, and we've reduced carbon pollution by 16%. We're doing the right things. We're moving in the right direction. I look forward to serving you again and ask for your vote. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ed. Craig?
Well, before moving here almost 10 years ago, I'm a lifelong resident of the 35th. I was born and raised in Thurston County. I started my career there and bought my first house. I transferred up here when I went to work for the city of Bremerton nearly 11 years ago. And that's a perspective with a district is this big, to have those connections in each county that this district represents. Kitsap, Mason, and Thurston. 3 very different counties, each with their own challenges, each with their own opportunities. And having that background, that unique perspective, I think is truly is what we need in a representative. Someone who understands the Thurston County issues because I've lived there. Someone who knows the Kitsap County issues because I work there. And someone who knows Mason County because, well, I live here too. So I believe that if by reinvesting in ourselves, investing in our education system, providing a transportation network that moves, and creating policies that promote growth, but also protect our natural resources, which we have a lot of them, and we need to put them to use. I believe working together in Olympia, we can get a lot of things done, and we can make the 35th district the best again. So thank you so much, and I would appreciate your support.
Thank you, both of you, and let's give them a hand. And now, as things are transitioning a little bit, we'll have the opportunity to hear a little bit more information about the Metropolitan Park District issue that's on the ballot. And who do we have here to present? Here we go. Awesome, thank you. I'm going to get out of your way. Just don't steal my water.
I shouldn't even be up here because I've got the perfect face for radio, not for TV. So, first off, just want to thank the Chamber and thank the Hub out here for the opportunity to speak and bring to you guys some information about the Proposition 1 that will be on your ballot concerning the creation of a Metropolitan Parks District. The Metropolitan Parks District will be 5 commissioners, and their goal is a regional development with a focus on parks, trails, and recreation. It has a levy with it, and that will be 20 cents per thousand of assessed value. So on a $100,000 home, that'll be $20 a year. $200,000 home, that'll be $40 a year. In other words, less than $4 a month to make this happen. And why do we think that it's a good thing? Well, this isn't a political move. This is a citizen-led move. The people that are bringing this forward have worked with the Parks Department for years and years. And we see what's happening with the parks. We see what's happening with the budgets. And we see what hasn't happened with our comprehensive plan. Name me one county multi-use path. There isn't one. You know, they haven't been developed, and there's great opportunities to make that happen. And we also feel that if you have a regional plan, if you have a county-wide focus for your parks, trails, and recreation program, each of those aspects has an economic impact that is positive for the county. Each of those aspects has a health benefit for our kids and for adults to stay in shape, right? So I only have about 3 to 5 minutes, and I told Chris, I said that barely peels the wrapper back on this. So I'm going to ask you guys, I'm going to point you to our handout, which is on the back table there. It lays out what we're all about. It also has all of the candidates listed. We think that these candidates bring a subject matter expertise to parks, trails, and recreation that doesn't currently exist. And we're going to stand this thing up and do great things in this county like you've never seen before. Imagine a bicycle path, a multi-use path that comes from Shelton all the way to Belfair, or something that goes from the Shelton waterfront out to Mill 5. And there's 22 miles of unused track that goes even past that could go out to Truman Glick Park. Think about saving and preserving the Vance Creek Trestle, which Green Diamond wants to give to the county right now, but the county doesn't want to accept the liability. Think about what could happen if we restored that bridge deck and saved that piece of railroad and timber heritage and created something like a trail opportunity using that, right? These are the kind of things that we're looking at. And if you look at this, on the backside, there are frequently asked questions. And also at the bottom, there is a website address, voteforparks.org. There's a lot of information there that I would point you to. We actually have bios on each of the 12 candidates. And I also want to let everyone know that on October 10th, we're going to have a candidate forum. If parks, recs, and trails are important to you, then you want to put the right people in. So we're going to have a candidate forum on the 10th at the Salmon Center here at Feller. And each of the 12 candidates will have a chance to talk about their skills and abilities, what they're going to bring to the table, what their vision is for Mason County going forward. And those are the people that you have a chance to vote on. So I'm going to keep it short. I think my 5 minutes are up. So thank you very much.
"12 candidates, that's pretty darn impressive.
For 5 positions.
5 positions, that's still pretty darn good. So let's bring up the new names here. And this will be for Mason County Commission District 1, Randy and Kelley. So I'll choose who's heads or tails here. Oh, Randy will be heads, and you'll be tails.
Okay.
And here we go.
Tails in a row? Oh, that was a high one. Heads.
Okay, we'll start with Randy with the questioning here. And this is a question both of you received. Very important question, by the way. The status of the Belfair sewer system has implications for local ratepayers, countywide taxpayers, and the economic future of North Mason County. There are Washington state mandates for wastewater management in the area, concerns about the financial state of the system's operations, maintenance, and cost impacts on local customers and the county budget. What are some specific steps that can be taken to address state and local concerns about the system? And Randy, you have 2 minutes to solve this problem.
Isn't that amazing? 2 minutes for something like this, it's not even possible. I want to give a quick reminder to some of the folks what we're talking about here. This sewer system is a $57 million system that was put up on top of the hill. This is a system that only serves 286 customers. At the time, we as a community all got together and fought it and fought it and fought it. I see some of the faces that were there that knew that it was going to crush us when it came into place. Not because sewers are bad, but because this particular way of doing it was just not feasible. And immediately businesses closed. You remember Crazy Eric's? We lost Crazy Eric's. We went into the business for John L. Scott when they first opened up. Here's a sign that says another business lost because of the sewer. These issues have continued on, and being able to solve that problem has been a long road. They've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get solutions, and they couldn't. We finally were able to put some stuff together that did it. What it's going to take is it's going to take the expansion to finish up the rest of the UGA, not because that's what I want, but because the grant money that was taken says it has to be done. It's supposed to be done by 2017. If not, all those millions of dollars has to be paid back, and then it'll still get done because the agreements were made with the state, with Ecology and USDA. I hate that idea. I hate everything about it, but that's the reality of it. So the only thing that we can do as a county is find ways to mitigate this problem and to manage it and to keep the cost down as much as we can. We've come up with a plan that will literally allow the people for a change where right now they're forced to hook up. They'll be able to not hook up if they choose not to for up to 10 years. But they'll be able to buy capacity now and get it early so that we can get as many hookups as we can early and keep the cost down for everybody else. The plan that we came up with literally keep the price down to $98 for up to 10 years. The system's working on tricked as a system. 1/3 of it's put away in boxes. We don't even make enough affluent to even make it work. It's failing in many different ways because of that. But being on top of it as we are now and getting these things done, as this goes through, it may not be pleasant, but we'll be able to overcome it.
Thank you. Kelley?
So the one thing, well, actually there's two issues that I've found out in trying to research this subject. It's one of the issues that I knew when I took on the challenge of running for county commissioner would be addressing the issue of the sewer. One of the biggest problems that I have found is, frankly, in getting information. There is really a lack of information that's available to many of us in the community. There is the Belfair Sewer Plan, but it's not on the website. Frankly, I went to the county and said, can you please give me a copy of that plan so that I can understand what it is and what are the, kind of the challenges facing us. It's not out there, and it's hard to get information in order to answer questions that many of the folks have. Number two, the biggest thing that I've seen on top of a transparency of information being available to any of us citizens in the county is the fact that when it comes to the sewer system, if you build it, they will not come. It's a fallacy. Here we have phase one that was supposed to not only address a lot of the issues with the water table, failing septic systems for businesses, it was supposed to also basically bring folks into that downtown corridor and help spur some development. That has not happened. So I cannot imagine, while I understand that there are some issues with the financing through Department of Ecology and USDA, that building up into the River Hill area and up Old Belfair Highway is going to spur more economic growth. We haven't defined what economic growth is. What does that mean for our community? And for many of those homeowners, they do feel like it's forced upon them. So I think we have far more questions than we have answers with regards to what do we do about anything with regards to our sewer plan at this time.
Thank you. Randy?
And I couldn't agree more on parts of that, because the truth of the matter is it wasn't put in for any of those reasons. It should have been, but that's not what it was. And it is here. Like, as I said before, I fought it. if you, there's an article out front, because I read on Facebook that was one of the ones that supported it. In the article, it tells about me doing 11 bags of chemo, barely able to stand, and still going to those meetings to fight it, because I knew it was going to crush us. But the problem is, now it's there, and it's going to be forced on us whether we like it or not. The old commissioners took it upon themselves to sign away our future and the future of this county. They did it. It's done. So now we have to make it work. We have no choice. The system is already in. There's debts that have to be paid. The question becomes, is it 13 million we pay back, or is it going to be 42 million that we have to pay back? By continuing getting the system put out there, I don't want it, but that's the way it is. That's the only thing that's going to end up saving us and allowing us to continue to grow as a community and not be crushed. Bear in mind, it all makes a difference. $12,000 is what a QFC would pay there. $80,000 here, it's a lot.
Thank you. And you get to finish this question up.
All right, thank you. I think we really need to look at alternatives to any other solution in this particular case. I reached out actually to State Representative Dan Griffey and said, you know, we're just Mason County, and this is a huge infrastructure project, and a lot of times regionalization is where a lot of the different government entities are going to address these issues. You'll see whether other projects, such as in fire districts or any other areas, that they're looking for a regional approach. I think we need to exhaust every other opportunity besides expansion at this point in time. Are we allowed to do any kind of renegotiating of those loans? Is there something that we can do to partner up with the Bremerton area? Can we bring in any effluent so that it works better? Are there other things that we can do besides, again, expand up the Old Belfair Highway or any other phases? Thank you.
Great, thank you. That leads us to question number 2, and we'll start with you, Kelley. So what are your priorities of Mason County government, and how do you intend to implement them?
One of the things that I think that's really, really important is that in order to solve a problem, you have to define the problem and what that is first. And in order to go in any direction, I really believe that it's important that we have a plan and that we have a roadmap. I believe that in Mason County, we don't have a strategic plan. When we don't have a strategic plan, we don't know where we're going, how we're going to get there, and what's it going to look like at the end. I've had 15 years as a fire commissioner here in the North Mason Fire District. We were District 2 until 2 years ago. We joined with District 8 and became our regional fire authority, which is the first one in Mason County. And within that 15 years, we have gone through 3 reviews of our strategic plan. And in looking at that, I've really learned extensively the importance of not only having that plan, but listing your priorities. And I don't know if we've actually addressed that as a county. We have some really big issues to tackle. One of those is the sewer. Another issue is the jail. On top of that is our economy and our issues facing us with any homelessness or mental health. Those are all some big, chunky problems. And so we can't tackle them all at once. So I think it's really important that through the professionals here who are our elected officials, our department heads, our citizens, people who have experience in this area, I really think it's important that we all come together and create a plan that lets us address these issues step by step, piece by piece, and prioritize where we spend our dollars so that we actually have a plan and we're not just reacting to the problem, but we're being deliberate and purposeful.
Thank you. Randy.
Some of the top priorities that we have to have, whether we like it or not, is reactive. You know, we are planning constantly. We've done some great investments. The sewer is one we have to talk about for being reactive. No matter whether we like it or not, it's up there and it's going to happen. We've looked at all the options. We finally found a solution. So instead of owing $38 million in 30 years, we're going to be paid off in 18. That is a solution, and we're finally getting there. Surviving the infrastructure issues that we have going right now. Somebody just mentioned that. Look at the road widening situation we have here. It's going to be incredible when it's done. I actually was going down the road. There was an accident with a police officer in front, a fireman behind, and 2 cars in the middle. And the interesting part is for the first time ever, this is by Les Schwab, I actually drove through it. Now think about that for a minute. I drove through it. They were going both directions. Traffic was moving in both directions while they were an accident on the side of the road. Can you remember the last time that was even possible? We have to be able to overcome these issues that we're dealing with and make it better. You know, a lot of people don't know that they were going to put chain link fence all down that road up there. We had to fight to make sure that we get proper fencing for this community and don't just make our community just look terrible. Job creation has been a huge issue in Mason County. The city of Shelton has lost many jobs, not the county itself, the city did. But we've been going out individually and bringing in more and more companies by knocking on their doors and asking them to come here individually. We have another 30 that was just brought out here that I went to lunch. They actually showed up down there to tell me, thank you, because all these jobs were here because of what you did and the fight you did down there at the county to bring us in. Then when they couldn't expand, I go down individually and I bring the staff with us and we find a way to get to yes and make it happen. The best thing that we can do for this community is to continue to empower each individual here to be able to do what they need to do to make us all successful. In this county, you may not know this, but a new thing that's occurred. Did you know you can now build a garage on your property up to 24 by 24, 36 feet without a permit now, just by empowering you? That's how we get success.
Thank you, Randy. You have a minute to respond, or add two?
Thank you. I really think that it's important that we look how we align our resources. That's why I do believe strategic planning is important. I think it's important to look at what resources we do have available. Are there overlapping in delivery of those services? As we talk about homelessness, veteran issues, housing, reentry programs for a jail where you have those leaving custody and going back into the community. Many of the times there's multiple groups providing the same level of services. So I think by bringing people together, recognizing which each one of those service groups are doing, actually bring those resources instead of not communicating what those groups are doing. Bring them all together because that's how we're going to influence the future. That's how we're going to influence where we're going, and that's why I believe that planning is really vital for us, because right now we are in transition here in Mason County.
Thank you. And Randy, you get to wrap this question up.
Okay. You know, it always sounds good that we're going to go in, we're going to cut this, we're going to do that. I was one of the worst candidates for that. I really truly thought I was going to go in and fire all these people. The truth is, when you get in there and you see the budget and you find out because of the recession we had, they were devastated already and there wasn't enough to do the jobs that we needed to do. That was the problem. And then you find out that the past commission had a $2.2 million deficit, and you find out 15 minutes after sitting down in a chair, you're now the chair and it's now your deficit to fix, and I have to come up with it. Then you find there was a $3.2 million for the next year that you had to overcome, and still find a way that in one term that you get add 8 new deputies, 6 new corrections officers, 45 new vehicles, a new judge, and find a way to move these things forward. It sounds good that we're going to just streamline. It isn't that simple. You have to make it work. You have to work with what you have in some of them. And now we're finally open at lunch where we hadn't been for years.
Great, thank you. Thank you both for that question. So this is something that follows up what we heard in the transition. There's a measure to form a Metropolitan Parks District for Mason County on the November ballot. What are your intentions if the measure passes? Would you support transferring existing county parks to the new district at little or no charge? Would you continue county management and maintenance of current parks? If the parks are transferred, explain your plans for the $550,000 now used for parks management and maintenance. And Randy, you're the lucky one to answer this question.
Okay. Now the question is if it passes, correct?
Correct.
Okay, if it passes, would I be willing just to give them everything immediately? Absolutely not. You got to be able to prove that you can handle that. We're talking tens of millions of dollars. You're talking about an organization that doesn't exist yet. They don't even have a structure. They don't have anybody working for them. I've seen things on the internet where they think we're going to give away our employees, and I hate to tell everybody, but we don't train people anymore either. This whole thing, if it happens though, is a great opportunity for this community. I'm hoping that, yes, if they want to take the parks, if they come together and that's what they agree, then I'm willing to have that conversation. I'm also hoping, though, if it does happen, that they look at bringing in brand new parks for this community, places for these kids to play, a skateboard park, or how about the idea of a little zip line going down through the school district thing where they actually can have a picnic where you can't now. Right now, that is our park. Right there at that bus stop. Isn't that kind of a shame? We're working towards that, but with the money situations, as you heard about today, with the deficits that we overcame, and by the way, we overcame all those things, paid it off, and in the last few years, if you haven't noticed, nobody's raised your taxes. at least at the county level. But yes, I'm open to talking to them. I'm open to see what they're willing to do, but I'm not willing just to give it all to them until they can prove they can handle it, because we're supposed to be the responsible people with the people's money, and every one of you own that property now. It would be just wrong just to throw it to somebody because they created a new government. Because remember, it's a new government. It is not the county. We would have no control over it if we gave it away. They're their own council.
Thank you, Randy. Kelley, same question.
So I haven't heard a lot about what the actual plans are for the Metropolitan Park District, and I guess that's my challenge in answering that question. It was a relatively, I know that there has been information that it has been discussed, but unfortunately I don't think that there's been a lot of information out there for a lot of folks to say, this is a plan, you're going to have $1.2 million going into a Metropolitan Park District, and this is what we're going to do with it. That's going to free up almost $500,000 from the county's budget. So where does it go? Who gets to make that decision of where those dollars go with regards to the Metropolitan Park District or within the county? My concern is handing over those dollars, because right now we have a significant problem with our jail, and we're outsourcing to the tune of $100,000 a month for inmates to be housed in other places. We do have some big issues, and so I'm not prepared to fully say, hey, this is what we need to do with the dollars from the county, when I know that we have bigger concerns, and especially when with regards to the Metropolitan Park District, there isn't a plan. And so at this point in time, I don't think that I could fully answer that question.
Okay, Randy, you have 60 seconds.
I think she may be a little confused on how this works a little bit. The Parks District would collect their money through a tax on you, not from the county. They're looking at 20 cents per thousand is the amount that they're going off of. The county's money itself, the $500,000, would be a savings that would stay within the county to operate and do other things within the county. It would free up that money to not be used as parks if the parks were given out to a Parks District. We can't get confused on that. They're not getting the money. Remember, they're a whole other governmental entity of their own. They don't get the money that goes to the county. But again, if you do decide to pass that, and it does happen, there's some wonderful opportunities out there. So I just hope that they focus on bringing in new opportunities so that we could up the quality of life in our community, if it's decided by the people that that's what they want to do.
Thank you, Randy. And Kelley, you have the last word on this question.
No, I'm not confused about the fact that it's going to be $1.2 million and it's going to be another taxing district in of itself. It's no different than just an additional junior taxing district. That does have an impact on junior taxing districts. I understand that there's going to be $550,000 that will be in the county's budget. As I stated before, I think it's important. I know that parks and trails and recreation add to quality of life. It's one of the things that makes it appealing to live here in Mason County and the rural nature of that. But my big concern is, before we make those decisions with an additional taxing district, is that there be a conversation about what happens to $500,000 when we are facing some other crisis within the county.
Thank you. And now we are able to close things out. You have 90 seconds.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening. I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. As you get to the end of these, it's usually the commissioner candidates are here going on and on about all these questions. I have been in Mason County most of my life. I've had the opportunity to live throughout most of the county. And for the last 15 years, I have been your fire commissioner. I think if you look at the caliber and leadership that we have at our fire district, the good work that we've done, the investment that we've provided within our people, within our citizens, I think it's reflective of the leadership that I possess as a part of that. In addition, I am a 25-year employee with the Thurston County Courts. I work with directly with offenders. I work specifically working with those who are pending going to court. We refer them for therapeutic courts. We refer them for mental health as well as drug court. I'm a big proponent of those courts because I think it's really important that if we're going to help improve the health of our community, Part of that is improving the health of those who suffer from mental health, drug addiction, and making them a productive part of our community. And that, impacts public safety, public health, and even those who are in schools, because many of them do have children. And so I am very much dedicated to the public health and the public safety of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelley. And Randy, you get to finish this section off.
Thank you, everybody. I know so many of you. I've grown up out here. As I said, we've all worked together and fought together on some of these issues. I wish I could have put on a smilier face when it comes to the sewer, but the issue is greater than that. And I have to be realistic and honest with you about how dire it is. We do finally have a solution, though. That's the great news of it. After all these years, we finally have a solution. And we have a way to get this thing paid off in 18 years and keep this community from being bankrupted by it. And don't think that everybody's not affected. A can of those little Vienna sausages at Walmart in Shelton will cost you 55 cents or $2 here. Everybody pays for it. Whether you like it or not, they all pay for it. But, they always say in politics you can't get anything done. I beg to differ, and I hope my actions have shown different than that. We talked about the $2.3 million deficit when I first came in. Cute little story. 15 minutes, as I said, I was made the chair of the commission. The next day we had a budget hearing. One commissioner literally was there for 15 minutes, tapped me on the shoulder and says, "Let me know how this turns out." And that's the last time we saw him. But my actions have shown that we can accomplish so much and get so much done. As I gave the breakdown on the law enforcement, I gave the breakdown on some of the permitting. Did you know that we put our health department and our building department together where we used to have a 14 to 18 week wait, now we're down to 14 days. We actually put the citizens first again. We found a way to bring customer service back to the community. And we have the bypass coming because we put together that West Sound Alliance that helped to advocate that. Imagine Pierce County and Kitsap County asking for our projects working together. I hope you'll consider voting for me again so that I'll have an opportunity to represent you and stand up for you for another 4 years. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you both. Let's hear it for Okay. Hello.
Make sure I know who I was.
This is my marker to make sure that you guys are, came up with a device.
What does that do?
If you're speaking, it's over here. If Kevin is speaking, it's over here. Awesome. Okay, here we go. Okay, Roslynne, you'll be heads. It's tails, so we'll start with you, Kevin.
Perfect.
And this is the question that you were both sent, and it's a deep one. No pun intended. The status of the Belfair sewer system has implications for local ratepayers, countywide taxpayers, and the economic future of North Mason County. There are Washington state mandates for wastewater management in the area, concerns about the financial state of the system's operations, maintenance and cost impacts on local customers, and the county budget. What are some specific steps that can be taken to address state and local concerns about the system?
Well, thanks. It's great to be here with everybody tonight. And this is one of the biggest issues that's facing Mason County. And I know that it's one that we need to tackle head on. If you've watched the commission meetings lately when the issue of the Belfair sewer has come up, and you look at the conversations that have been had about it, you can see that from everybody that we're making decisions that are coming from a place of desperation, because that's where I think where we're at in a lot of ways when it comes to dealing with this sewer system that a lot of people didn't want, but it's the problem that we have and it's the problem that we need to solve. In this past commission meeting this week, we agreed to a $1.5 million grant from Ecology to move forward with phase 2. And so this is in the process. This is something that's happening. And so how do we look at making sure that we don't make the same mistakes twice? Well, there's a couple of things that we can do in the short term and the long term in order to try and give ourselves the best chance at making sure we don't repeat the same mistakes. So first of all, we have to think about how we want to grow in this part of the county and through the county in general. The sewer, when it was built for 7 or 8% growth. And in the past few years, we've experienced about 1%, maybe a little bit higher. So we need to have a serious conversation about how we want to address the planning regulations and policies that we have in place in this county so that we can allow for growth to come in. And so second, the other thing that has been mentioned earlier, I don't want to beat the dead horse here, but there are some other options that we can have in the short term, including taking a look at the septage that gets taken to Webb Hill, some out-of-county septic pumping that could be processed in this sewer system as one example of a way that we can solve the problem a little bit in the short term. Finally, as we approach the phase 2 portion of this and as we continue to have a conversation about what to do with the grant money that we requested this week, we have to have an open and transparent conversation with the public, and I look forward to leading that discussion as Commissioner.
Thank you. Roslynne.
Yes, I think we've heard a lot tonight about the sewer. We've known that it's been coming for a long time. I used to attend the briefings when it first started. We're not giving the person who was there the whole time full credit for how we got this thing, but he's still your representative, and I think the community should still get back to their representatives and let them know what they think. It sounds like there are some things in the works as far as getting it fixed. I'm going to rely on the people who are still representing us to move forward with that. I have been attending the budget briefings and will continue to do so. I think that maybe Kelley mentioned that there are other ways that we can look at funding. I think that since we are all taxpayers, or most of us, taxpayers besides locally, we're also federal taxpayers. And when the potlatch bubble went in, we were fortunate to have Norm Dix in the appropriations, and he got some money for that, and a lot of the money that they got for that system actually was not loans. That's a big problem. There should have been a little more effort put into getting grants, because some of these government entities, that's what they have their money set aside for. So I think there are some other ways that we can look at coming up with the money. We'll go ahead and bounce to that next question about the Metropolitan Parks District. I'm concerned about sweeping the money that is supposed to be set up for parks into the sewer. I'm very concerned about that. So I think we can look at other efficiencies and other ways to take care of the problem.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, you have 60 seconds to further your comments on this issue.
Sure. Well, I think the concern that I have is that we continue to look backwards on this issue and we continue to point fingers and blame. That's fine, but that ain't going to solve the problem. That's not going to fix the effluent flow that we have. That's not going to make sure that this sewer system is solvent into the future. And so that's why I've proposed that we look ahead, make sure that we have an open and transparent process in order to discuss the grant money that was requested this week, and that we continue to look for other options in the short term to make sure that that flow is up, and that we even look at renegotiating the debt, getting our state legislators involved, getting people around the table, bringing ecology back in and saying, okay, what do we do? Also empowering our new director of that department to say, okay, work on this, let's come up with a feasible plan, and let's make sure we can put it into use.
Okay, and you have the chance to have the last word on this, Roslynne.
Well, I think another thing that we have to look at, and I may not be popular for that idea, and that's to make sure that the people who are actually looking out for our interests are qualified to do so. Just like the park system, we commissioners are going to sit there and say that we can operate the park system. Well, maybe we're not qualified to do that. I don't know what the qualifications are of the people who are looking out for your interests in the Belfair sewer, but I think we need to start there.
Okay, thank you. And you get to start with the second question. What are your priorities of Mason County government, and how do you intend to implement them?
Well, that gets to the same issue. I've got over 20 years of experience with programs and management, and I think that by adding all the layers that we've done over the years, I'm concerned that we may have done some harm to ourselves and not helped. I think looking for efficiencies, we have to go to each of the departments. That's why I'm attending the budget briefings, so I can see what has happened in the last, 8 years. But when I used to attend the commission meetings, and they've pretty much discouraged people from doing that, in my opinion. But back then, some of the things that they were talking about are coming up again. So I'm thinking that, for instance, the budget hearings themselves can be done better. The public should be more involved, and that's how you get accountability. And I think that that's how you find out what is happening within each of the departments and whether we're doing a good job.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, same question.
Thanks. So the priorities of government, I think, are pretty clear when it comes to what local government does. When people think about their local government, they think about who's going to fix our potholes, who's going to provide for picking up our trash and filling, making sure the public health is provided for. And finally, when you call 911, who's going to show up? And so we have to have priorities in local government that reflect what our values are and what our needs are in this county. And so when I look at that, we need to have an economic plan here that empowers people to be successful in our economy. And so I'm looking for ways to get our unemployment under control. It's still at 8.4%. That's well above our regional neighbors in Kitsap and Thurston County. We need to look at ways to build partnerships with our local community college, Olympic College, South Puget Sound College, trade unions, small businesses, and our school districts in order to provide people the training that they need to be successful in the economy. And finally, this was mentioned a little bit earlier, but we need to continue to take care of the businesses that we have and go out and recruit new employers to Mason County. In terms of public safety, one of the first things that I did when I announced that I was running was I toured the jail. That continues to be a criminal justice bottleneck for us here in the county, and another issue that we're going to have to address sooner rather than later. You may have heard the saying that justice delayed is justice denied. Well, in a lot of cases, that's where we are here in our county. And so we need to look at alternative methods of sentencing. We need to look at options to get people into treatment so that they can break the cycle of recidivism. And so I think when we bring all those together, we start to build a budget that reflects those values and those needs in our community.
Thank you. And Roslynne, you have a minute to follow up.
Well, I think we do need to keep in mind what the government's job is, and sometimes we as citizens aren't very clear to our representatives what we want them to do with our taxpayer dollars. So that's why I'm really strong on making sure that people are doing what they need to be doing and that they get the support that they need to do that. We do have a lot of priorities, but in order to get where I think we need to be, which is to encourage more people living here, and I see it from the beginning where I'm on the school board and we have families coming and going all the time, so our numbers are changing, and then on the other end we have people leaving the community as we age out so that they can get better health care. So we need something that keeps at least something grounded in between those two areas, but we still have to encourage jobs, and by doing our job, by monitoring our departments and making sure that they're giving the services that they're supposed to, I think we're going to be encouraging jobs. Plus we'll be counting on our state representatives to help us out with that. So that's what I'll be working on.
And Kevin, you get a chance with 60 seconds to wrap this question up.
So one of the other issues that's really critical is good constituent customer service. Working for the state legislature, I've provided high-level quality constituent services for the past 4 years, and it was always with how can we help, how can we solve this problem. We had an office here in Belfair that I worked at for over a year, and providing those services is critical to making sure that government is both effective and accountable. And I think, you know, when we talk about getting more people involved, yeah, that's critical. I serve on the planning commission in this county. Those meetings are full. People are engaged, and we have to make sure that we're continuing to allow people to do that. One of the other things that we need to do in terms of fixing our permitting process here in the county, we've done a lot to improve it. But one of the things that we also need to do is we have to look at investing in the technology infrastructure that we use in this county to better get the message out to people, to let them know what resources are available. We have technology that's in some cases 30 years old. And so I'd like to look at reinvesting in our county employees so that we make sure that they have the tools and resources to do their job effectively.
Okay. And now we get to go to the Parks District question. So the measure to form a Metropolitan Parks District for Mason County is on the November ballot. What would your intentions be if the measure passes? Would you support transferring existing county parks to the new district at little or no charge? Would you continue county management and maintenance of current parks? And if they're transferred, what would you do with the $550,000? Kevin.
Well, I think at this point it's a little premature to say. And I say that because I haven't, frankly, heard enough from the people that are running for those positions. I know I've met with Neil and Arvilla and a lot of the other folks that are part of the Friends of the Parks organization that has been instrumental in getting this on the ballot. I think that's good. I think that's a good starting point for the conversation. But I need to hear more from the people who are running for these positions to understand what they think is the right way to be a good steward of our tax dollars. I have no problem raising my own property taxes, okay? I think that's a good way to go about this, but I need to hear a little bit more. Unfortunately, October 10th is the forum that you guys have scheduled. There's also a League of Women Voters forum that a lot of us will be participating in down in Shelton. And so I need to hear a little bit more before we go about making a decision. As far as the money, yeah, that's gonna free up a lot of money. A lot of that money that was coming from our REIT 2 funding, from our real estate and excise tax. One of the things that have been suggested is that maybe we allow that to sunset in 2017. So I need to get a better idea of what the folks running for the position want to do with it, and then see what the implications of letting that sunset or continuing that tax would be.
Okay. Roslynne.
Well, I think I differ with the other candidates on this subject. I pay quite a bit in property taxes, and I'm real careful about what I think it should be used for, but I think it's a good idea. If it sounds like it's polling fairly high, it sounds like the people are for it, and if they are for it, then I would get behind it. I see some head shaking, but from what I've heard, that is the case. So if it does in fact pass, I would be in support of, at some point, working out an agreement to transfer the parks that we do maintain here in Mason County. Like I said, we're tasking commissioners to do things that I don't think they're qualified to do. I think it's always a good idea to transfer such things to people who actually are tasked with doing those things. I know it's easy to be afraid of what we don't know, but I don't think metropolitan parks districts are a new thing. I think that other people know how to transition those things. Certainly it wouldn't happen within the first year, but at some point I think it would have to happen. On the school board at Hood Canal, we had an agreement with the county for, well, in order to apply for grants, we had to have another funding agent speak up for us, and that became the county. So if we get the grant to update our playgrounds, our playfield, then we would be agreeing with the county, or would we be agreeing with the Metropolitan Parks District? I'm not really sure, and I don't think other people are either. But I think there are going to be a lot of questions that haven't been answered yet, and they get time to form, and at some point they'll be up and running, and I think they probably would do a good job based on the qualifications of the people who have applied for the 5 positions. It looks to me like they probably have a pretty good handle on what we need.
Okay. Kevin, you have a 60-second follow-up.
Sure. So I think the issues there are kind of what comes with the territory when you create a new government. And so there are going to be some growing pains. There are going to be some things that we need to work out, some details. Look, I think it's undeniable the passion behind this and how much we do value parks and recreation in this county, and how much of a part of who we are that is. And so I think that's why it bears having that conversation pan out a little bit more and hearing straight from the people who are running to be parks commissioners.
Okay, great, thank you. And Roslynne, you get to close this out.
Close it out? Or?
60 seconds.
Oh. Well, like I said, I think that it will probably happen based on what I'm hearing, despite some people thinking maybe not. If it doesn't, then that'll change the whole picture, of course, and if we do sweep that money out of that account, what are we going to do to maintain the parks that we do have? That's why I'm concerned about that. So anyway, I think that looking at how to make things work as opposed to fighting it, I think that's why we ended up with the Belfair sewer problem. We didn't pay too much attention to it when it first came up, and I sat there and listened to the idea that we were going to get all these loans, and why aren't we looking for grants? So I think we need to be at these briefings. We need to pay attention. We shouldn't be saying that we don't know what it's going to do. We need to pressure these people because they can give us those answers.
Great, thank you, Roslynne. Okay, so we're down to the last statements. You will have 90 seconds to close out your portion of this discussion.
Closing.
Anything you want to talk about.
Okay. Well, I guess I can say that I retired when I was 45 years old, and I'm proud of that because that meant I had a little bit of luck and a whole lot of planning. So I think what I bring to the table is that. I've been back for 20 years now. I was born here in Mason County and spent the last 20 years volunteering in the community and working in a variety of things, from health to just helping work in parks. So Unfortunately, in this county, if you're a volunteer, you don't get the voice that you really do need to have, and so that was one of the reasons I decided to run, is if I can get into a position where we can make some changes and improve things. When I left here in 1957, I don't remember all of how it worked, but when I came back, it seems like we should have had more jobs. People shouldn't be leaving. I mean, it's a great place to come and visit. We have a lot of tourism. That's our major industry. But if we had some jobs to keep people from driving to other counties, I think that would be very helpful, and that would definitely help our schools. They're just, everything is so intertwined, and it all starts with whether you have a good foundation. And I think as a county commissioner, it's our responsibility to make sure that we have the services to provide to the people instead of hiring more people to keep track of what it is we're supposed to be doing. So I'm very disappointed in the fact that we've done that. I'm sure the people we've hired are very good at what they do, but that's something I would be looking at for sure. And thank you for your time, and I look forward to your support.
And Kevin.
Well, thank you, Joel. So again, it was a pleasure to be here with you, everybody tonight. I do enjoy getting up to this part of the county. My wife is the school district nurse here in North Mason County, so if you have kids or grandkids that go there, she's their school nurse, and she does a good job taking care of them. And so this north end of the county holds a pretty special place in both of our hearts. On top of that, we have a lot of challenges that we're facing in this election, and I think everybody in this room recognizes that, and that's why you've chosen to come out tonight. There are issues that we're going to have to address here in the next couple of years to really determine where we want to go as a county. And I said earlier, we have the 8.4% unemployment. We have a jail overcrowding crisis. We have an opioid crisis. We have an affordable housing crisis. We have all of these things. But at the end of the day, we're a resilient community. We're a community that comes together to get things done. That's how it's always been, and that's how it's going to continue to be. And I look forward to having an opportunity to bring my experience as a planning commissioner, as somebody who has worked in state government on local and regional issues. I look forward to bringing that experience to the county commission in order to provide quality constituent services and get Mason County moving forward. With that, I appreciate your vote, and I look forward to the lightning round that I know everybody else is really excited for. So,
Great. Thank you both. Let's hear it for them. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of moving stuff around up here. And by the way, it's the middle of the fourth. Athletics, Mariners, 0.
I admit, I did try another TV provider. It sounded like a great deal, but I quickly realized it wasn't. When I read the fine print, I was locked into a long-term contract with a huge cancellation fee. So I came back to HCC. They're more reliable, the service is local, and I save, bundling internet and phone with them too. And I'm a lot happier now.
Great service from a local company. Stay with HCC.
This is your brain. This is drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions?
Yeah, I have questions.
Prescription drugs aren't as bad as street drugs, right?
Weed's legal, isn't it?
Drinking is worse than smoking weed.
Isn't it? Why
is heroin so addictive?
Molly just makes you feel happy.
I have questions.
Mom?
Dad, did you ever try drugs?
They're going to ask. Be ready. Go to drugfree.org. A message from Partnership for Drug-Free Kids.
I'll do the short call, short call.
The living room. It's a great place to watch TV. Just like your backyard, break time at the office, or waiting for your ride. Now you can watch TV everywhere. Stream your favorite shows or live TV from many channels in your cable package on any computer, tablet, or smartphone. It's all included in Hood Canal Communications TV service for no extra cost. Sign up to watch TV everywhere today. Call or visit Hood Canal Communications online to learn more.
Hood Canal Communications, MasonWebTV.com, the Shelton Mason County Journal, and the Shelton Mason County Chamber of Commerce present a General Election Candidates Forum live from Olympic Middle School in Shelton on Tuesday, October 18th. Hear from the candidates running for Mason County Commissioner Districts 1 and 2 and the candidates running for 35th District State Representative Positions 1 and 2 tackle the issues beginning at 6 o'clock. Moderated by Heidi McCutcheon, it's a General Election Candidates Forum, 6 o'clock, Tuesday, October 18th, live on MasonWebTV.com, HCC.net, and Hood Canal Communications local channel.
Oh, we should though. 30 seconds. Do a little commissioner karaoke. I know. I haven't seen her. You have not. One would be for the for this one. I guess we can do it that way. Yeah. That would be for you.
So the question is, if you don't get the date changed, are you going to have more time?
No, we don't have time.
Okay.
No, that's who we're going to be talking about on the 13th.
Okay.
Up at Swanson.
Okay.
I believe in it. Got 11th or 12th. Do it if you can, or make sure it gets recorded.
Well, yeah, and I think maybe we can bump it to the 11th. That's what we're going to shoot for. So, all right. We want to standing.
If we can get all the candidates up front here, we're going to test out your shoe leather. You'll be standing during the question and answer time.
All right, if we can make it.
If folks can start finding their way to their seats, and the candidates to the front, we'll kind of get this thing going. Let's see, commissioners, legislative races, awesome.
And if you have a question prepared, you're going to have the opportunity to actually ask that on the microphone. And we put a little X on the ground over here, so this is where you'll get to stand. But please, there's a little thing up here, reminder, please state your name, right, if you're with any affiliation, any candidate or committee. And then please ask your question so that it can be posed to all 4 candidates in that race. So if you're asking a question to state reps, each would have the opportunity to answer that question, and then same with the county commissioners. So, Joel.
I think we're ready, and you'll have 90 seconds to answer the questions each. So, hey, this is going to be, this will work out pretty well. Seamless. Okay, who is the first brave soul to come up and ask a question of our candidates, and which position? We'll have Kat here, and then we'll bring you up. Come on up. Following instructions.
Yes, I know. Me? Kat Ross, affiliation to any candidate, no. I was a member of the Hub's, what was I? Advisory Committee. I'm sorry, thank you. But in my new job, I just don't have time for it. So, to the legislators, and also our commissioners, don't step back.
Oh, wow, okay.
This is a big one. The Hub has not been granted due to state law the exemption as for taxes, property taxes, because they are run by a nonprofit. Most of them are run by Parks and Rec. Figure that. Would you be willing to put forth a bill and then support it strongly in our community to get that exemption removed? This is a huge thing, and the build it and they will come has really overwhelmed us. So how do you feel about that?
Okay, well, let's start.
So absolutely, and the reason I asked for the mic first is because I'm already working on legislation. Patti asked me the question, and I also had a question from the senior center in Shelton. It affects them. Basically, the problem is they can only rent this out a certain amount of times as a nonprofit, tax-free a few times, and that really they struggle in their ability to maintain and their operation to do that. And yes, we're working on legislation for that, and I will sponsor it or co-sponsor it, however we got to do it to get it done. Thanks.
Let's go that way.
Yep, and same here, and a member of your organization met with me a couple months ago, and you know, a lot of these things, you talk about special carve-outs, and I don't mean that in a derogatory manner when it comes to this, but there are so many different nonprofits, and it's like, well, we'll exempt a bingo hall in a church, and then, you know, you go through this litany, and so, ironically, the way it's set up, yeah, you're not in the inclusion, and so yeah, we'll definitely work on that and get it fixed.
Yeah, I'd absolutely sponsor a bill and champion that to get that sort of exemption. And I'm sure there's other organizations that are probably in your similar position, at least the Hub's position statewide, that would benefit from that sort of exemption.
When I ran against Tim Sheldon in 2014, this was one of the issues brought up for the Shelton Senior Citizens Center, and it was a big issue. And I don't think it's right if we have representatives that promise certain funding and then they don't follow through on it. And I know that's been the case not only on the senior centers, but other issues here within the 35th. So yes, absolutely, I will fund it. I can't think of anything more important. We were talking earlier about the two vulnerable situations, the young and the older people. And this is something that we absolutely have to, this is how we build community. And we need to make sure that it's not a burden on anyone, especially the people that are using this center. Thank you.
Bring the mic on down. We can start with Randy and come back this way.
I've been active with the Hub from the very beginning, from one of the first times when they had a meet and greet at the house, to the time we put the shovel into the ground, to the blessings on the wall, to where we're at now. Something we can do as a commission is to continue to lobby for these when these happen, actually go down Olympia and make sure that it continues. But also right now, one of the things that I've been doing is trying to offset some of the problems they have. They have a farmer's market out there that's not truly a farmer's market, so therefore they can't call it that, and it's considered more of a retail issue for them, and so it helps them to reach that cap so they can't get their tax reduction. Got a hold of the Shelton Farmers Market, trying to get them to get some of their farmers down here so they won't have that issue in the future. I know they've already had those contacts. And I want to give a special thank you to Dan, because in actuality we'd already talked about this at one point, that he's going to go forward with this year to try and get that so that organizations like this are exempt, not to get an exemption, but to get organizations like this included into the exemption. He was already telling me a few months ago that he's going to try and work on that to try and make that happen. So, you know, from my work on the Hub, I want to say thank you on that.
I'm just going to pretty much mirror the same thing, absolutely, in supporting that exemption. I think it's vitally important. Anytime you have community centers that support senior centers, just no different than when you're looking for those community centers that support teenagers. It's a place for people to get together. It's a healthy place for folks to be, exchange ideas, information, opportunities. It's also a good place for resources for any of us who work in the emergency services. it's also a connection and opportunity to reach out to those who may be isolated, who may have other needs that we may not be aware of, and so absolutely supportive of that.
Well, first off, thanks, Kat, for everything you've done in this community over the years. I know you're still involved, even though you're retired from North Basin Resources. And to Patti, Patti was one of the first people that I met when I started working in the legislature. And we have to have their passion and their doggedness in getting these things done. If it's not for people that are completely engaged and working hard, things like this don't happen. And so to that point, I will continue to do the same on behalf of this community in Olympia, make sure our legislators follow through on what they promise, and so we can get the best results for Mason County, regardless of party, regardless of chamber in the legislature. We got to keep working together.
Well, obviously, it'd be foolish if I said I didn't agree. So, of course, I wholeheartedly agree, and while they're busy working on that, I think we need to take a look at the schools, and we are paying taxes, and we receive taxes, so I don't know that, I think something should be done about that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kat.
Thank you, one and all. And to the community, those of you of the geezer and geezerette age, anything over 50, please urge them. If it takes writing letters, emails, calling them, urge all of our candidates and then our winners to represent us in this, because property tax is huge on a place like this, and it can help. We need to build that elevator. I can't keep doing 22 stairs.
20% off at Little Creek when you're over 50. And don't forget to turn down that mail when you get it from AARP, yes.
Hello. Hi. I'm Sandy Giacchino, and I am not affiliated with anybody, and this is, sorry, I'm Sandy. I'm not affiliated with anybody, and this is a question for my potential commissioners. In the 20 years I've lived in the Tahuya Forest, I have seen a massive increase in the number of illegal shooters. I can't go for a walk in the woods anymore because people come out there and they shoot across roads, they shoot into the forest, they think they're in the wilderness and they'll just hit a deer, whether it's deer season or not. I hear people shooting at night. We need a shooting range in Mason County. Kitsap's closing theirs or closed theirs, and they all come out and I pay the cost all by myself. Me and the other residents, we pick up casings, clay pigeons. We can't talk to everybody who comes out and ask them to be considerate and safe because they're all armed and they're not all calm. Would you support a county shooting range if Proposition 1 passes?
And I would like to add something to that, because this is an issue that I think the state legislators could address as well, since the Department of Natural Resources has some issues with that as well. So why don't we go down the line, start with the county commissioner's side, and then see what the legislators might want to say about that. Okay?
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I've actually done an ad about it. I think if Proposition 1 passes, I would advocate for a shooting range. And one of the things that I said in my ad is that the Shelton marksmen are the best in the country, and I think they deserve a shooting range locally. So, yes, I would definitely support that. And there's a gentleman over here who says there's going to be an answer coming from someone about being able to shoot on your property. And I've had the same issue on my property, a person on the highway side shooting toward our property, and that's an issue. So, yeah, I would agree with it.
Well, thanks for coming out and asking that question. I can tell it's kind of unnerving when that kind of stuff happens, so I appreciate you coming forward. Yeah, DNR is working on some solutions. I know my work in the state legislature with Representative MacEwen and Griffey, I know DNR is working on a solution for some of that. We do have the indoor shooting range in Mason County, and so I think if we can find ways to, I mean, you brought up the Parks District, you know, if we can find a connection there, that might be worth looking at. So there are a lot of things in the works, but unfortunately, those things often don't happen fast enough. And so we need to make sure that they keep moving forward and that we continue to keep people like you in mind that want a good, safe space for folks to go target shooting so that they're not in your backyard. And so I think that's definitely an issue that I look forward to continuing to work on.
I do support the idea of having an outdoor shooting range. Not only is it important for there to be hunter safety courses, for people to be aware of gun safety, to have recreational uses for it, but on top of that, there's also the opportunity for law enforcement to do outdoor training. There are limited places for law enforcement to have a training facility such as that. They have ongoing qualifications that go year-round for many different agencies, and so I think there's not only the opportunity for there to be recreation safety courses, but there's also the opportunity to bring in training for those outside agencies and those here within the county.
Yes, if Proposition 1 passes, but you don't necessarily have to wait for that. First of all, there are things going on with DNR right now. They've already been out visiting with our communities. One of the problems that we have, though, is, first of all, they're allowed to shoot out in those lands. That's something else that it's not illegal. They're actually allowed to. They're looking at some different areas, but of course, some of the areas they're looking at, one of them's up in Tahuya across from the river, and people are pretty upset about that. But even aside from any of that, the county is already working on that right now. We just had a meeting, was it last week or so, where there's a grant available where we're looking to, I've been tasked with meeting with the Mason County Shooting Association, of which I'm a member. I ought to know the name, but it's for down south. They're a nonprofit organization, but also up here, up north, just up the hill here, you have a gentleman that is a for-profit, just a regular business person that is looking to also do that. So I've been sent out to see if we can partner with either one of those entities to go after that $165,000 grant in order to start that process. But bear in mind, just being straight with you, even if we create it, doesn't mean that'll stop everything out there. We have to look at other ways of putting rules or regulations around that to get control in those particular homeowner areas.
Thank you for the question. I've been working with our Public Lands Commissioner, Peter Goldmark, about this issue specifically. And yes, Randy is correct. It is legal to shoot there. So what are we going to do about that? We were talking about setting aside a designated shooting area. So that is the only area you can shoot. So then we can police that and make sure that people can do it. They couldn't shoot at night. They had to be proper daylight. And the DNR actually sent DNR staff back to NRA headquarters to work on sighting issues. How do we sight it to where you have safety built in, to where the shells or the projectiles will not leave the designated shooting area? But that's one solution. As a side note, as a state legislator living here, I've run out of places to shoot. I would love to have a private or public shooting range in this county. Thank you.
Yeah, you've got great two, excuse me. You have two great proponents of this too, and Mel and Herb I know are here tonight, and I've been working with them, and we've brought the DNR out here, and we've looked at it and looked at some of the other situations, and so absolutely, and continuing to press on that. And in fact, I just had an email from our DNR liaison a couple days ago, and I said I want an answer by December 31st, and I expect that. So we're on it, and we're going to continue to push for that.
Yeah, it's not isolated to Tahuya either. I know from growing up in Thurston County with Capitol Forest, which borders Thurston and Grays Harbor County, being on both sides, going up and target shooting as well as being a mountain biker, and there's times of paths have crossed, and that can be a little unnerving for those who aren't expecting it. And so it's a lot of land up there. I think a lot of room for everyone to coexist peacefully and to make sure everyone's safe and doing the right thing.
I have two things to say about this. First of all, Green Diamond owns 25% of the real estate here in Mason County. Perhaps they would chip in a few acres for something like this. And then secondly, I live very close to the Kitsap Gun and Revolver Club. And the big issue with that originated about 80 years ago. And then as more development came closer to that piece of land, it was with long-range rifles and also with the sound issue. A lot of the neighbors were very upset about it. So I urge whoever decides to go forward with this, and I think it is an important issue for everyone here in the 35th and all different areas, make sure that we put it in a place that we don't have to close it down 20 years down the road or have any legal issues, because Kitsap County's been embroiled in this for years, and it's a big mess, frankly. And it's too bad, because there's no place to go now close to where I live.
Thank you.
Okay. I saw you getting up and you were in the starting blocks. So which candidates do you want to address a question to?
Same question.
Okay. Framed differently, hopefully.
Yes, indeed. Okay, my name is Mel Armstrong. I've been working with DNR for well over 12 years now, trying to get a place to shoot. You know, per WAC 332, it's perfectly legal to shoot in Tahuya State Forest. And we've been trying to get an area designated. There's a DNR user group that meets once a month during the fall and winter that addresses issues like this. To the man, every user group, that's dirt bikes, quads, jeeps, hikers, mushroom pickers, shooters, hunters, to the man, they all agree that this is something that needs to be done. And like I say, I've been working with DNR for 12 years now. I've gone and talked to everybody from the commissioner on down to the local DNR rec person, recreational person. And we're looking for a matter of words, we're looking not for a rifle range, but we're looking for a place to shoot. Rifle range implies you got a director, someone that tells you, okay, today you can shoot, tomorrow you can't. We're looking for a place where just Joe Schmuck can go out with his rifle and sight it in. When I've lived up here about 40 years now, I was shot at the Sandhill gravel pit for decades. For 25 years I shot there. Then all of a sudden one day I go up there to shoot, sight in a rifle for hunting season, and there's no shooting signs. Well, they gave it to the ORV people. Well, with no hearings, with no public input whatsoever, it was just given to the ORV people. Fine. So, but when you ask DNR, where do you go now? They say, this is the quote, "I don't know, but you can't shoot here." That's totally unacceptable. We need a place to shoot. It's legal. It's desirable. There's hundreds of people that want to shoot, and we need a spot. We've identified two areas, the Shoofly area and the Stimson area to shoot. There's nice little valleys with places you can shoot safely. So all I can say is I just want to make it known that what we do want, and that's just a place to shoot. And we want the support of the DNR and the county to set up something like that. That's all I want to say.
And actually, I think that they probably answered much of your question in the previous
They did.
one.
I just wanted to make sure that this isn't a new problem. I've been working on it for 12 years myself.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your comments.
Okay. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
I want to say, I've learned to read eyes. I'm supposed to contact the court, aren't I? Is that what that was? I got it.
Hey, how are you doing?
Just fine. I'm Harry Tuchel. I am the vice chair of the county Veterans Advisory Board. When I first got working as a veteran service officer in Mason County, I went down to the Memorial Hall building, and this is for the county commissioners. They were running our Veterans Advisory Board. The chair was a county commissioner who was not a veteran. By state law, every member of the county advisory board must be an honorably discharged veteran. So I, in my usual forward way, slapped the RCW in front of the commissioner and told her she couldn't chair this committee. We would welcome her to visit us. Finally, the county commissioners looked at the advisory board, and we have now reestablished it. We are continually improving our services to the county veterans. The purpose of this board is to provide assistance, right now, $1,000 a year, to indigenous veterans in the county. I also work, because of my proximity here, with Kitsap County. Other than the 1 or the 4 months a year where we have 5 weeks, and the county commissioners meet up here, and they can't vote. Until recently, they could not spend our Veterans Assistance money. It was sitting there. I put in a request on one Thursday at 5 o'clock. It'll be voted on the following Tuesday at the county commissioners meeting. Now, if it happens to be that 1 month of the year, and we have addressed this, it would add another week for this guy to get his electric bill paid, his water bill, food. Probably starved before he got the voucher.
So what would your question
My
be?
question is, when I go to Kitsap County and put in, I make out the application, I pick up the phone, I call an individual who administers the funds and make an appointment for the veteran. He has to live on the other side of the county line. That bill will be paid that day. Why does it take us 10 to 2 weeks, except the new exemption that the county commissioners have put in? Now, when I first started, we were giving out $600 a year. That won't even pay rent. $1,000 around here won't even pay rent. We're working on, as an advisory board, we feel that it's our responsibility to look at that expenditure. So what I'm asking the county commissioners is how can we expedite this better?
Good question.
Yes, and thank you for your service. My husband is a fellow Marine also, so I know what you're dealing with. That gets back to my boring story about how you have to make sure that the right people are doing the right jobs. I think that probably taking a look at that and determining whether or not there's a better way to do it. I think it is painful for waiting for a variety of things to be passed by the county commission every time they have a meeting. I don't know if it's possible to give that authority to you, but that's what I would propose if that works better.
Well, the authority is with us as service officers to recommend the disbursement.
Okay, let's see what Kevin has to say.
Thanks, Harry. So I think what we need to do is we really need to look at how we can cut through that red tape and get the process moving faster. You said that you guys recommend it. If there's a way within our county codes or under state law that we can expedite that, I think we need to look into it and maybe find an alternative way to allow those funds to be released to the board so that it can get into the hands of the people that need it the most. So that's definitely an issue, and that comes back to making sure that our county government is responsive to the needs of the county residents, improving those customer service, constituent service aspects to local government, I think is important, and I look forward to working on that with you.
Thank you. Good question. I think many times when rules are made and legislated, that those who actually have to implement them and are the recipient of them, they aren't always on the same page. So I do think it's really important that as we have these processes and procedures that have been in place because they've been in place because that's what we've always done, that we go back and that we look and revise those processes so that we can be a little more expeditious and receptive to the recipients of all of those funds. So I would concur and say that we do need to look at that and look to be much more receptive to what you need.
For those of you that don't know, Harry's kind of a local hero here. I'm going to just say it straight out. He's a little different than most. For many years before we had an organization here, if somebody passed away and the widow needed help, they went to Harry. If somebody needed some services, because we didn't have people here representing them, they went to Harry. Harry took them down. He got them signed up painstakingly on his own over and over again until finally he was able to get teams around him to where we can move forward with this. Some of the things that Harry's talking about, I'm the one that brought some of those things forward. Well, at one point, everything was public. Whenever we were to give them a check, we had to run their name out there in public. I got rid of that. I asked to have that gotten rid of. The thing he's talking about is we had those weeks where we're missing being able to get them the funds. It was me that was able to get that moved forward. All these things were at Harry's request. Harry requested, I just tried to make it happen. And it
was the board.
Yes, it was
County
the board.
Commissioner.
But it is the way that we can make this part happen too. But there's one problem with it. A commissioner that serves on the Board of County Commissioners now had a problem in the past. I haven't seen it happen since I've been there. But I guess in the past, there were a few people that had asked for the funds that should not have gotten the funds. And this county commissioner found fault with that and was able to stop those funds, because it is a responsibility of the county commissioners to make sure that those funds are spent legally and accurately. Now, we look at these names, and I've never seen anybody that I would say no to, and we haven't said no since I've been there. But I understand that happened some years ago. But all we have to do as a commission is empower an individual, most likely on our staff though, it'd be like the support services director, to okay it and write the check. I know that I've had a discussion with the chair, and I know we're going to move forward with it. We might have to wait for a year or for a part.
I know, but at least we're working.
Yeah. Thank you, Irene. Thank you for your service. Any other questions tonight? I see here. And you carefully wrote it down on your card too. Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Pauline Martin. The only affiliation I have is to the Martin family from Grapeview. But my question, I'd like to preface it with, we have seen a lot of the articles in the Journal going back and forth with the Sheriff's Department and the county commissioners, and there being friction. I'll use that word, friction. A lot of friction between the two. So what I'd like to ask the commissioners is, what is the plan moving forward to support our law enforcement and help keep our citizens safe and secure?
Thank you.
Well, I think our plan is to hear what he has to say about his budget and make sure that it all makes sense. It would be nice if the community were involved to say this is what we want, and make sure that the resources that he's identifying are going to take care of your concerns. I have a lot of concerns myself. We have a neighborhood that it should not be what it is, and the only answer I got was, well, you should see such and so neighborhood. That's not good enough for me. So anyway, I think I definitely support the sheriff's office, but I think we need to make sure that we're getting the services that we are paying for. Randy has told us earlier about how much we have improved things. We've gotten more officers than they've even asked for, so I'm not sure how we can still be having problems, but you know me, I would be looking at that department also carefully to make sure that they're doing as much as they can be doing.
Great question. I think public safety is the paramount duty of local government, first and foremost. When it comes to ensuring that we have our public safety in order, that will help along everything. That being said, we do, as a commissioner, have the responsibility to provide accountability and oversight when it comes to the budget. And so it is possible to be both pro-law enforcement and hold people accountable when it comes to their budget. And so I think when we look at we need to look at what the mission of the Sheriff's Department is. We need to have open, frank, and honest conversations about the direction the department wants to head in. And then we need to make that fit within our budgetary constraints. One of the first things that I did when I announced that I was running for office, I mentioned earlier, I went and toured the jail. It was much better to be there as a visitor. I can guarantee you that. So, when we look at these issues that we have, we're going to need to solve them. We're going to need to get everybody involved, get everybody around the table. And as it turns out, the sheriff is an independently elected official in the county. And so regardless of the direction or the tone and tenor of the debate between the commissioners and the sheriff, no matter what you think about that, the sheriff is an independently elected official. And I respect that. I respect that office, and I respect the people that voted him in. In a lot of cases, they're the same people that vote for commissioners. So, as we have this conversation about public safety, we have to recognize first and foremost it is our paramount duty. And secondly, we need to understand that we can say that and hold the Sheriff's Department accountable so that you get the best return on your investment from our public safety providers.
So I don't think it's a big secret. I think it's been in the paper that everybody knows that I do have a good friendship with Casey Salisbury, who's the sheriff, and I openly own that. We have been long-term friends for many, many years, gone to high school together, have family friends, and so I put that out there openly. I believe strongly in not only law enforcement, but in our court systems. And he's independently elected. He does have oversight of his budget. And at this point in time, I don't believe the sheriff is actually asking for dollars for patrol, for investigations. The greatest crisis that our court system and criminal justice system is having right now is the jail. There is outsourcing to the tune of $100,000 per month. Unfortunately, our jail is not equipped to do what it is supposed to be doing. Some folks need jail therapy, but we're housing a lot of we're housing mental health offenders. We're housing those folks who have been sitting there for far too long and for pretrial basis, and the list goes on and on. I think it's really vitally important that we not have adversarial relationships with our electeds, but that we have cooperative relationships with our electeds, and that we get down to the crux of what is truly going on, not just with our law enforcement, but with our entire court system.
As I said before, but the proof is in the pudding for me. I've actually provided more expansion for our law enforcement than anybody I've ever seen in history. We're talking in 2012, their budget was $9.7 million. In 2016, their budget is $14 million. 8 new deputies, 6 new corrections officers, 45 new vehicles, a new chief position, some more support services. But sometimes you still have to be adversarial, because our job as commission is the budget. And our job is to make sure those monies and those dollars are spent wisely every time. Even if it's the sheriff and you're the biggest fan of the sheriff, you still have to make sure it's spent wisely every time. We ran into some conflicts, one being that he was requesting a $35,000 a year raise for himself. Now, in Mason County, that's huge. He's already the highest paid elected official, except for the judges, but that's set by the state, in the county. He makes much more than the county commissioners. I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that's the way it is. To ask for that much money, I couldn't do it. So that was an adversarial issue that came up. Found out that we had a situation where we had $500,000 that we expected to go for wages that were not going for wages. That's fine, but then that should have come back to the county. It didn't. It gets spent in another way because they have bottom line authority. That had to stop. In Kitsap County, they have line item. Every single line item, they get 4 opportunities a year to change within one line item, but not here in Mason County. In Mason County, we're giving them bottom line. Now we separate it. Wages to wages, bodies to money to bodies, and then money for their regular services. He can work within those two, and that becomes adversarial.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions tonight? Well, you jumped right out of there. You've been.
This is a nonpartisan question, so my own allegiances are completely irrelevant, and it's actually only addressed to those that are running from the legislature. Here is a concern that is unique to the North Mason School District, not just to our school district, but to rural school districts across the state. In general terms, the state assumes that this is Illinois and that the roads go as the birds go. Now, as you know, the roads in our district, our beautiful district, are intersected by water here, there, and the other place. We got to go think of how to get out to Dewato in a straight line. Okay. Our district needs for the legislators and other districts like it, need for the legislators to take a look at the school transportation formula for the state. Because one, it discriminates us against us. We are paying, all of us, part of what the state ought to be paying for our transportation. Not only that, we're getting penalized for being inefficient in doing it because we're not abiding by the state. Then 2 groups of students we want to specially aid are not being helped. Those that are looking for jobs, how are we to get them the training programs if we haven't got some special buses to take them there, particularly here? And those that want to go onto Olympic Community College, we also don't have any funds to transport them. In an urban area, it might look differently, but we have actually been published in the state books as an outlier. So we are a kind of centerfold for what is wrong with our funding formula for schools. Will you do something for us, and what might that be?
Here we go. Okay.
I guess I'm first up here. Yes, I'm very aware of the special needs that rural school districts have in comparison to urban ones. Part of my business, I was working in conjunction with schools and Parks and Rec over in Seattle. And what they have for the public school system is the kids actually go on public buses. And they also can go, if they have the transportation, to go to whatever school. So in other words, some kid down in downtown Seattle could actually go to school way over at the University District. So that they're not paying, the school district is not paying for that or having to worry about this. So that gives a lot more flexibility also to where the kids want to go to school. In our situation, we are really stuck. And I'm really glad that you brought that issue up. I think it's a very, very important one. And not only important for the students, but the teachers and teachers' salaries. And I mean, there are so many things that we didn't talk about tonight, especially in relation to education and funding education and how equitable it is. And we're losing teachers in our area because we don't have the salaries and we don't have comparative things to keep them here. So we have a tremendous fast turnover, and this is affecting our students. So getting back to the bus situation is a big, big problem, and as your next state legislature, I will definitely be on top of that. Thank you for asking the question.
Thank you. And I served with John on the North Mason School Board, and I remember that issue coming up. At the time, it was one of the elements of the McCleary decision was transportation funding. And at the time, North Mason was kind of backfilling that by about $150,000 a year. I believe the number is still significant in the upwards of $100,000 a year. But I think the best way to do that is to realize that that one-size-fits-all approach to how we do things doesn't work because our district is rural. We have great bodies of water that split our district up. Going across the mountains, there are great miles in between residential schools, all that. So I believe we need to give some flexibility to the different funding models, whether it's by actual miles driven, whether it's as simple as pulling up a mapping program and saying go from point A to point B and what's that miles, and we'll fund it at that. So we do need to make sure that we have the flexibility with districts that have unique geographical challenges. And the North Mason is not alone. There's up and down in Thurston County. It's the same way with the Griffin School District in the Steamboat Island Peninsula. So we do need to address that, and we need to be on top of that. That way, under that McCleary decision, the state is paying for the transportation costs.
Thanks for the question, John. And yep, I know there's kids in the Hood Canal School District that are picked up at 6 a.m. and home at 5, and that's not acceptable, and the costs that go with it. But I'll make 2 points to it. The chief budget writer for the last 3 cycles is from downtown Seattle. And we talk always about this urban-rural issue. And I brought it up to him, and I said, this is a big issue still. He says, well, I fixed it. Well, no, you didn't, because he had rewritten based on mileage. I said, you got to look at where the water cuts through, and it's the exact same things we've been talking about here. So there's that issue. We have people that have been writing the budget for the last number of cycles that never even came to this side of the water and looked at the situation that we face. And then secondly, the definition of K-12 that you heard earlier didn't include transportation, but the Supreme Court alludes to it. And so we don't have this definition. It goes back to, until we clearly define some of these things, it's tough to find what that funding is. So yeah, am I an advocate for it? Absolutely. And I serve on appropriations, and it's my hope that in this next session we have a person from a rural area that chairs appropriations, and we can make some serious changes to it. Thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to say yes. But John, you've talked to me about this issue several times. We thought we could take care of it with a rule change last legislative cycle. We talked to Superintendent Public Instruction and the Office of Superintendent Public Instruction, and because they have been backfilling some of those shortfalls, and we wanted to see if we could codify that permanently just in a rule change. That didn't happen, so now we have to pass a law, and we will be working on that law. Just to re-emphasize the issue, North Mason is the #1 affected by this. There's 3 other school districts that are affected, but we have a large body of water that when they calculate, they said, well, you can just walk across that body of water. Well, no, not so much. We're not going to be able to build bridges across Hood Canal to do that. Exactly. Well, if we could do that, wouldn't be a problem. When we get hovercrafts, maybe it wouldn't be a problem. But we are working on it, and it's going to take legislative action. Superintendent of Public Instruction doesn't believe that a rule change would do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions tonight? Here we go.
All right, so state your name. James Bell from Union, affiliations, any candidate. I used to be Roslynne Reed's neighbor and working on her campaign. Also, Neil, who's sitting over here, helping with the Metropolitan Parks District. So that would be my affiliations. But my question actually is to the 35th LD candidates. And so for about the last 8 years, I was both the co-founder and served as president for the Union Tourism Association and worked with businesses in our community on tourism. As you probably all know, we are the only state of all 50 states that has no tourism funding or tourism department. It was cut because of the budget crisis back in, I believe, 2008. That was also part of the reason why we formed a Union Tourism Association, was to deal with that situation. We looked at other states, and only one other state had done that as an experiment. It was Colorado. After about this period of time, Colorado began to realize that the tourism dropped off dramatically across all rural areas, and we're starting to see that here. And so we're going to head down the same road that Colorado did, I believe, unless the tourism funding comes back to Washington State. So that's my question: is do you support that, or do you want to keep it at zero?
So yes, I support putting some funding dollars there. One of the things we did when the tourism commission or department went away, that entrepreneurs picked it up. So the Restaurant Association has picked up and they're running with it. I think Restaurant Association and Association of Washington Business should get some funding from the state legislature to push that, because Association of Washington Business is the chamber of commerce for business in Washington State. The Restaurant Association also deals with hospitality and represents most of those areas you're talking about, the restaurants and those things that we can get to. So I think with a little bit of funding and creative way that we run it through those two entities, we're going to get more bang for our buck, and we're going to do a better job in tourism.
Thanks for the question, James, and it's happy to be a member with you in the UTA, and sorry to see that go a little bit, been folded into the chamber, but still is vibrant, just under a different umbrella. And ironically, I serve on the tourism task force. I was just appointed to it a month ago, and we're having our final meeting 2 weeks from this Friday. And we've been batting around different ideas, and we're looking at adding $15 to $30 million out of the general budget. And the question that we're looking at is, do we make it an appropriation, or are we going to have should there be a tax that's somehow tied, whether it's hotels or rental cars, which is what a lot of states do, especially California. And there's obviously pushback to that method as well. But the bottom line is, we're committed to getting an appropriation of $15 to $30 million. We're trying to figure out what's going to be the best way to do that. We just had an economic forecast release that increased our budget revenue by $335 million. So I'd make the argument that we've got the money there to do it. The return on it, depending on what study you look at, can be anywhere from for every dollar spent on tourism advertising, you can get 5 in return. Some say 9. Bottom line is, it's significant and it has an impact. And we're getting beat right now by states like North Dakota and Indiana. So we've got work to do. We have a lot to offer in the state, and I'm all for it. And I look forward to concluding that task force work in 2 weeks.
I think obviously funding needs to go to it. Whether we need to reinstitute a state level agency to coordinate that, I'm not willing to go that far on it. I think if we can divvy out, whether it's through grants or whether it's through the appropriations to those local tourist activities, whether it's Chamber of Commerce, whether it's a tourism agency such as what was in Union, I believe those sort of keeping it local is the most effective way to sell your location. That's my opinion. I'd be hesitant to start another state level agency on tourism, just for the fact that we went through that recession and it was cut. And when, as our economy goes ups and downs, when you start looking at cutting again, once again, here we are back cutting another agency. So that would be my reservation about starting another state level agency. As for funding, absolutely, we need to make sure that people know, come to Washington. A lot of people can go home too when they're done, but come and visit and spend your money.
I think having a state agency would be very good that could coordinate all of the counties, all of the cities, municipalities. We have, like for instance, in Kitsap County, waterways where we have water trails now. That could be expanded over into Mason County. And as a representative of 35th LD, our first priority should be bringing business into the 35th LD. We have the most beautiful LD area, I think, in the whole darn state. I'm a little prejudiced, obviously, but I really think we do. And so why shouldn't we get going on this agency and really get it coordinated? I don't like going on the ferries, and I'm looking up Wyoming, I'm looking at Montana, they have these brochures and stuff, and I'm thinking, gosh, that looks like a beautiful place to go. They have incredible pictures, very tempting ways to entice you to go there. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm taking the ferry back to Kitsap County and looking at the Olympic Mountains. I'm saying, what am I thinking about? Why would I want to go to Montana? We have everything here. So I think we do need to reinstitute that agency, and Department of Tourism could greatly help the 35th, bringing hotels, all different kinds of things and jobs for us here. And that's one of our first priorities as legislators, protecting our own turf.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, here we are.
Hi, my name's Kim Wilson, and I'm not affiliated with any candidate. My question is about the sewers, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse already, but as a citizen, when I call the county utility, Mason County Utilities, I get one story. When I call, anybody else, there's just all kinds of stories out there, and there's no public information. And you get 7 different stories, and I never know what is really happening. So what are we going to do to keep the citizens that are affected by this sewer informed? Nothing's on site. Nothing is on the web about it.
Are we talking about the plan for the Belfair wastewater, or is there some other issue?
The sewer district, the Belfair sewer.
Okay. On the Belfair sewer, one of the reasons why there's nothing online yet is because it's not been enacted. In order for it to be enacted, we actually have to have a vote of the commission, and that should be coming up within the next month to where we'll be able to bring it forward for the public to look at to see what kind of additions are going to be needed into the code, because you can't just even change the numbers. The whole code has to be changed, and it takes our directors to be able to put that code together so we can bring it forward for the public to see. Until that's done, we did have plenty of community events that we had an organization, a group of citizens that met, and every single person that applied was allowed to be on that, and every person that wanted to attend them was welcome to attend them, and they were public and they were advertised. But in the future, when we finally get this thing ready for enactment, all of it has to go public. It all has to be public hearings, and it'll all go up online at that point. But even then, it's going to be hard to explain unless we have it all documented for you for the code changes. Other than that, you'll look at a big spreadsheet and go, what in the heck is that?
I do agree. It was very challenging to find information. There is a copy of the Belfair sewer plan that was adopted in 2015. As I stated, it is not on the website. I did ask the county for a copy of that. It is a document. I believe that it should be. Having done numerous projects within the fire district when we were going to be spending a significant amount of money, we went over and above probably what is required in terms of public notification to really go out to the public and talk about what we're doing, why we're doing, how it's going to impact the community and the costs, so that you know what you're getting. I think we have a duty when we're in that public setting to do whatever we can to keep the public informed, be having meetings amongst the staff so that we are giving the same answer. There is a lot of rumor, there's speculation, there's There's email, there's Facebook, there's all kinds of stories going on out there. I went out and I, doorbelled the River Hill community and heard different stories, and people, again, did not know what was going on. I think it's really, really vital that as we go forward with whatever goes on with this sewer, that we really do go above and beyond informing the public every step of the way, even if that means, extra meetings, evening meetings, whatever media sources to inform people what's happening.
Thanks for your question. I want to echo a couple of things that I said earlier tonight. Number one, we need to make sure that the process continues or begins to become more open and transparent for people to participate as this unfolds. Second, I said we need to invest in our technology infrastructure in the county. So we need to invest in updating some of our IT things so that when you do go onto the county website, it's easy to find information that you're looking for, and it's more user-friendly. And then finally, the third point that I'd like to make is we have a couple of new people in leadership roles in the county. One is kind of a return to that department, but with Dave Wyndham in our community services department and Jerry Houth in our public works department. I'd like to see those two coordinate their efforts and come up with a plan that we can work on and work off of. And then at the appropriate time, there are state laws that govern open meetings and public meetings, and as commissioner, I'm gonna make sure that we follow through on what the law requires us to do in terms of getting the public involved.
No offense, Randy, but it sounds like I can't release my tax returns because I'm being audited. I personally think that there can be more information out there, and there should be. We got information when it was first coming out, but I haven't seen much in the way of any information, even if it's just a proposal. It doesn't have to be a spreadsheet. But yeah, I think it gets back to why aren't we informing the public? And unfortunately, if you're running for office, if you target any particular office, it causes terror and pushback. But I do think that the website could be more helpful. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Butch Bode, and I'm not affiliated with any of the candidates on your committee. Sewer question. How can the sewer be so definitely progressing to phase 2 when the people that you called to get information, just as Kim was describing, don't know? There's such a gap. Right now, the sewer appears to be. Tell me how we can keep from thinking of the sewer as an idol that we're all serving, and we're looking for more place and more things, more entities to serve that sewer. We're borrowing more money or getting grants to serve the sewer, going to a community, the old Belfair Highway, that doesn't need the sewer, but the sewer needs it. How can this keep happening? We have the Union River, which is very close, it's adjacent to the Belfair urban growth area, that has residences on it that can't be served by the sewer. We have Hood Canal, North Shore, South Shore, that needs sewer, but it can't be served by this sewer. Legislative, there's the RCWs that prohibit where sewers can go. What action has taken place to try and overcome that? Right now, the people that I've talked to that were on the sewer advisory committee, it was already given that, hey, it's coming, so figure out how you're going to deal with it. I don't feel real good with that. I haven't heard any candidate really think that, well, what can we do? Question why, it's already accepted. 10 years, property values. Somebody, if you're going to build a home and you want to sell it, well, let's see if we can find some rural property that's outside the urban growth area where the people won't have to pay an extra $100 a month, an extra, $12,000 to $20,000 to have it hooked up. It just doesn't seem right. It's just not right. Our government is not serving us. There's certainly mistakes. We don't need to go beat them up, but I don't think the way to correct it, and I haven't heard of the attempts to actually reduce it, there has been some, I know some work on that investigation that hasn't apparently come to fruition. But to keep borrowing, to expand it, it's just pushing it further. How can that happen? I'm sorry, I gotta
That's
stop.
okay. So I'm trying to find a question in there, so maybe.
My question is, how can we change the sewer from something that we are serving rather than the sewer serving us?
That's an excellent question.
Well, it's a difficult one for me because I'm in agreement with you. We didn't need it, but we couldn't stop it. And you still have a representative there that was there when it started, so he should be able to answer that question. And he and Randy will be working on this project. Randy's already said he's fixed it. I don't know.
To fix it.
I'll give my time to Randy to talk about it.
Well, first off, I think let's clear this up right now. No one of the 4 candidates here voted for the sewer in the first place. So that should be a cause for at least a little bit of hope. That hopefully we can learn from maybe some of the mistakes. I mean, it was clear that we maybe needed a Honda and ended up with a Cadillac in a sewer system. And so, but I feel your frustration. I know that this is the biggest issue that we're going to have to tackle. Because I mean, here's the reality. We had our legislators get $1.5 million in capital budget money to help with debt service. We can't keep going back to the legislature and asking for more money. We need to figure this out. And so that's why earlier I said, the grant money that we committed to this week, we put it in there because there was the fear that we're going to miss a grant cycle. And that moves the process forward. But we need to take this opportunity in between now and when that grant money is potentially dispersed with a potentially new commission to really evaluate where we want to end up with this sewer. And is phase 2 feasible? A lot of people say no. A lot of people say that we need it in order to grow. There might be some changes that we can make to laws in RCWs in order to help with easing some of the growth restrictions that we have. But yeah, it's going to be the biggest knot that we need to untangle.
In addition to what Kevin is saying, is again looking for other alternatives. I think it's really important to look at why the motivation and need to go up Old Belfair Highway, and why looking at that, quote, urban growth area, where to my understanding, I didn't believe that the River Hill Homeowners Association, River Hill Newkirk Road was within the UGA. I think there's a lot of questions with regards to the UGA with the Belfair Comprehensive Plan, the Mason County Comprehensive Plan, and then the Belfair Sewer Plan all together. So I think before we, again, phase 1 was needed, it was built. It was this concept that it would not only help the businesses there, but that it would spur growth. That has not occurred. Why? I don't know. Again, I think that's why we have to go back and try to look at planning around growth and development in this area. And before we, again, go back into debt to grow again, that doesn't quite make sense to me. I apologize for that, but it just doesn't. If phase 1 hasn't, created growth, then why would phase 2 create growth? I think we need to understand why it would be going in that direction, away from the water, away from the rest of areas that are already populated. We need to exhaust every other alternative before we look at investing any more and actually going into debt.
First of all, Butch, as you know, I fought it the whole time. I hated it, and I still hate it. But there's been a couple of mistakes made. First of all, nothing was passed in 2015. Something was agreed to send forward to the state auditor to look at, to see if we can get the findings taken off of us if we start to look at implementing the plan. It's never been implemented and voted on. And every time we try to bring it up, I have a commissioner that tries everything just to blow it up more and more. Problem that I have is the things that are in place, and the stuff, if you want to see what the laws are now, they are on the website. It's the code. You see, the code was actually adopted years ago. There's nothing new on there to put in the code yet because we haven't adopted it. The code is there. You can access it real easy. And the problem that we have is the agreements that the past commission made, whether I want it or not, makes no difference. They made an agreement with ecology and with USDA that they were going to sewer that area and the whole UGA, and yes, it is in the UGA, that they were going to sewer it, that's when they took the money, and that's why they took the money. They took it signing away the future of Belfair in particular, if not Mason County, because that issue shut down all of Belfair. You know it as a realtor as I did. They put a moratorium on Belfair. You can't build in Belfair. The urban growth area, the one place that the state wants you to build, we can't even build in it because we have a moratorium where there's no sewer. People that have properties out here can't even subdivide or build a house on their property. They can't do nothing with it until we can fix this thing. The problem is the law's already in place right now. We're just going with what the law has requested. But I've been able to, at least in the planner, we have been able to at least find a way to get a 10-year extension where they don't have to hook up when the sewer comes in, but the law is saying we have to, and the agreements.
And
Can I say one quick thing about this?
well, if you can talk offline here, there's a county commission question. If you want to extend it to the legislature, everybody should be given a chance to answer that question.
Well, I did intend it for the legislature because I understand that it's the law.
Okay, so
it is the law.
Let's hear from the legislative candidate.
If you have a Cadillac sewer system, then you need industry. You need someone that's going to be using it up to its maximum ability. If we can't change it, if it's financed for it, if it's going to happen, then what we have to do is find a way to pay for it through industry. And I think that we should run it north. We have the big port of Bremerton up there. And if we develop that area, on Highway 3 and use that sewer to help facilitate development of that area and work with Kitsap County, I think it might be at least a partial solution to the cost. It should not be going on to individual homeowners. This is very, very unfair. It's causing people to lose their homes. I remember talking to a man that said, I can't live in my house anymore. I can't pay to take a you-know-what, you know? That's terrible. So I think if we have this huge overbuilt, in my opinion, system with very little forethought, then we need to find a way to get big industry in here, and we have a perfect parcel of land, and people have been, flailing around up there. We need to get Mason County and Kitsap County to work together to use that sewer system and help get off the backs of all of the homeowners in this area. That's my opinion. Thank you.
So the Belfair sewer, boy, we were just discussing up here, that's the legislature's K-12 issue. I think unfortunately what that is a symptom of a much bigger problem, which is the Growth Management Act, designed in 1990 when Washington looked a whole lot different than it does today, without really any significant change or update to it. We see it up in Kitsap County where you have portions of county land surrounded by municipal areas. You see it here. Schools cannot locate new buildings outside of urban growth areas. And then it promotes municipalities when they do annex county lands to take the high dollar properties, mostly commercial, and that leaves a lot of the residential behind, which is where the service demand is. So a complete overhaul of the Growth Management Act, in my opinion, is what's necessary. It needs to be done sooner rather than it needs to be done sooner rather than later. This is a perfect example of why we need to be able to route that outside of the UGA in this area specifically, as well as bring that control back to the county level instead of having this state overlord deciding what's appropriate for our homes. So bring that decision making back to the county. It needs to happen. It's long overdue.
So real quick, we're losing a few people that have school tomorrow.
Yep.
Right. I'm looking for you to help for here. I was with Representative Griffey. I was happy we got $1.5 million, to help offset that. But guess what? That's still your money. I mean, it's still your tax dollars. So we can sit there and go to that trough as much as we want, but you're still paying for it. And so, we need to have better planning. I traded text and voice messages today with Congressman Kilmer, looking at some other options there as well. And so, we're fully conscious of it and what we can do on this end. But keep in mind, if you get a grant or you get capital budget money, it's still coming out of your pocket. And we need to make sure that going forward we do things right.
Well, because any of you that have ever heard me talk before, you know I have a problem with the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act does not address sewers. It doesn't say you can't develop if you don't have a sewer. There's a lot of folklore out there about sewers. If you know, only as a kind of somebody on the sidelines, when I was looking at the sewer discussions and living in the North End, it was kind of the really brainchild and baby of the then Congressman Norm Dix that said that this is going to save Hood Canal, that it's going to fix the anoxic zones in Hood Canal. Well, we already know right now that because Hood Canal is so long and so deep, they don't get the tidal exchange that they have. We can see journals from the original Europeans that came in this area and discovered the end of Hood Canal, that they were talking about anoxic zones back then, that they were talking about areas that had low oxygen exchange. So we made a mistake. Yes, we did. Nobody up here voted for that mistake. What I'm working with at the state level is alternative methods of waste disposal. They don't have to be giant sewer projects. What we find right now is most of the fecal contamination in our waterways in Washington State is from large sewer projects. Those, am I done? Or
10 seconds.
10 seconds. Okay. So those large sewer projects, generally built really close to the water, will have hundreds of thousands of gallons of raw sewage spill over. So I'm going to push that discipline and make sure that we understand Growth Management Act doesn't require sewer systems. It just requires that you have systems for disposing waste. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for your response. I appreciate it.
Okay, any more questions tonight? Great. Now I'm going to turn this around a little bit. Great that there are no questions, or sorry about that. I think that for everybody that stuck around, that the candidate should applaud you. I want to thank all of you for your time and your insight and your wisdom you passed to us. It was a great night and great people to be around, and I'd also like to thank you. And a thank you to the Chamber of Commerce, the Senior Center, Hood Canal Communications, and Mason Web TV. This will be available online at hcc.com and masonwebtv.com. Thank you and good night.